Yo, what's up, everybody? Good to see you. Gabriel Carbo back at it again. Today's episode is the Human Race, Volume 1, Made in Taiwan. What is magic? What's going on, Browns boy? How's it going, man? Good to see you, bro. What up, Shadow Buddha? In the building. Yes. What is magic? What is magic? First of all, let's this whole concept of made in Taiwan. That's something that I used to see growing up. Used to see that growing up on a lot of the toys we play with. Like, for example, like on G.I. Joe's, I used to like that. Made in Taiwan, all the plastics. The Barbie dolls, like my cousin Katrina, she had a Barbie doll. Barbie dolls on the bottom of their foot say made in Taiwan. It's like, what is Taiwan? Okay. It's close to China. That's what I knew, right? That's all I knew for a little bit. Right? That's all I knew. Yeah. Now my wife literally has it tattooed on her foot. Tattooed on her foot like a doll. Made in Taiwan. Right? Made in Taiwan. So why is Taiwan so popular to y'all? That's so important to a lot of y'all. Well, for you iPhone folks, it's very popular. The semiconductors that they make at TSMC, the forerunner and biggest creator of semiconductors, microchips, right, that power your iPhones and all other electronics.
The core processor of every iPhone comes out of Taiwan Semi. Every AMD chip, so a lot of our server chips, a lot of our PC chips, they all come out of Taiwan Semi. NVIDIA, so all their AI chips in the near future. There's no way you can move away from Taiwan Semi anytime in the near future. When you think about iPhones, the core processor of every iPhone comes out of Taiwan Semi. Every AMD chip, so a lot of our server chips, a lot of our PC chips, they all come out of Taiwan Semi. NVIDIA, so all their AI chips are fabbed at Taiwan Semi. You can go down the list, Qualcomm, every smartphone modem. And so, no, we can't live without Taiwan Semiconductor. And when you think about how much money Taiwan Semi has been spending on equipment, 30, 40 billion a year in terms of CapEx, you can't replace it even if you can duplicate their technology. And so Taiwan Semi is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSM, pioneering silicon photonics. TSMC is making significant strides in silicon photonics, developing co-packaged
How's it going, Beans? Good to see you.
Technology capable of achieving data transmission speeds of up to 1.6 terabits per second. The company plans to provide CPO samples to major clients, including Broadcom and NVIDIA.
Hey, Browns, but was I on mute? Did you hear me earlier when I was talking about made in Taiwan and how it used to be on all the toys? Did y'all hear that? Hopefully you did.
Later this year, with mass production slated for 2026. Additionally, TSMC is exploring the feasibility of manufacturing NVIDIA's Blackwell AI chips at its new Arizona facility. These chips are designed specifically for generative AI and accelerated computing applications.
Okay, the Taiwan chips are very important. Funny. It's funny. This is hilarious right here. Check out the synchronicity. Top companies. Intel versus Taiwan Semiconductor. Intel is in Santa Clara, California, where I grew up, man. I spent most of my time. That's why I said I'm from Silicon Valley. Literally Santa Clara, California. That's where I grew up. Versus let's see. And there you go, Taiwan Semiconductor. 130 billion market cap, 140 billion. That's crazy. 75 billion revenue. Intel 54 billion. Employees, 77,000. Taiwan Semiconductor, 300,000. Intel. Medium salary, 90,000 for Intel. 80,000. Taiwan Semiconductor. Shit. That is so funny. I'm following the semiconductor boys.
Taiwan isn't just making headlines. It's changing the balance of global power. Taiwan's semiconductor output is valued at 63% of global supply. Taiwan controls global chip supply. What's your take on this? Comment below and make sure to subscribe for more geopolitical info.
This is why I think China doesn't invade. One of the reasons why they don't invade. They don't want to piss off the world, man. People are angry when it affects you. Let's see. How would China start an invasion with Taiwan? Yeah. Have you guys ever been to Taiwan? It's a cool place.
An invasion of Taiwan is not going to start with a surprise missile strike. It's going to start with a blockade. And China is openly showing how that's going to happen. Last year, when we were covering Lai Ching-te's inauguration, we were expecting China to have...
Yeah, that's a lot, huh, Browns boy? 60%? Ridiculous. Yeah. Everywhere you go, those semiconductors are powering the our technology and devices we use.
Some kind of reaction, but nothing like this. Just a few days after the ceremony, Taiwan's military started reporting a concerning amount of Chinese Navy ships around the country. And then the
this is from a year ago.
They'd be holding a last-minute briefing. And when we got there, they released this map. In a matter of hours, dozens of Chinese Navy ships, Coast Guard ships, fighter jets, and drones had surrounded the main island of Taiwan. This was a new kind of military exercise by Beijing called Joint Sword, and officials in the United States sounded the alarm.
The People's Republic of China has embarked on a dangerous course and are on a dangerous course. Their aggressive maneuver around Taiwan right now are not exercises, as they call them. They are rehearsals. They are rehearsals.
Huh? Rehearsals. That's like a practice before you go on stage and kill it on stage, right? It's a rehearsal. You have a rehearsal dinner before you get married, right? The night before. After you practice the rehearsal of the ceremony to make sure everything goes smooth, right?
Rehearsals for the forced unification of Taiwan to the mainland.
Forced unification. Forced unification. That's the goal. They want, they want ever since 1949 when the Mao and the communists, they won the civil war with China. The nationals, the losers, KMT, they moved to Taiwan. Which actually was kind of winning, It ended up being a win for them. But ever since then, China has, and the Taiwan side lightweight have wanted a unification. The Taiwanese, they used to want the KMT, the main political power party back in the day. The only party back in the day. They wanted to bring the mainland under control of Taiwan, but now they're realistic. They're not trying to do that. But China has always vowed, mainland China, the communists have vowed to take back and reunify Taiwan by force if needed.
Since then, China has conducted similar exercises not once, not twice, but multiple times, giving us a glimpse of what is the most likely scenario for China to take Taiwan.
China Explained. This is a pretty good channel.
So in this episode, we're going to be looking at how
Taiwan
China
Explained,
a quarantine or a blockade, how long Taiwan could last, and what Taiwan and other allies could do to stop that.
So we really tried to distinguish in our research and writing between a quarantine and a blockade in terms of the tactics and strategies behind those two and the ultimate goals.
This is Brian Hart, the co-director of the China Power Project at CSIS. He says that a blockade isn't the only tactic Beijing can use to put pressure on Taiwan short of an open conflict. A quarantine of one of Taiwan's ports is also an option.
The goal behind a quarantine is to demonstrate Beijing's ability to control the maritime and potentially the airspace around Taiwan. But it's not necessarily designed to choke off Taiwan completely from trade, like perhaps a blockade might be.
A quarantine wouldn't technically be a military operation because organizations like China's Coast Guard, the Maritime Security Administration, and some maritime militia ships would be the primary agencies enforcing this, not the PLA Navy.
What they could do is, for example, with a quarantine, is any maritime shipping companies that want to access Taiwan need to first get approval from authorities in China.
Hello, Blue. Good to see you. Now that's the one I want to gas up for sure. She deserves it. That's a good woman over there. What up, Blue? Hop on. Just me and you. Just me and you. Just the two. We can talk about this Taiwan and Magic. Good to have you.
If those companies file that paperwork with China and they go through, what Beijing sets up as these proper authorities, they then let those companies in because the goal is to demonstrate that China is the ultimate authority over Taiwan.
Now that's a quarantine, which is a bit less escalatory because the military would not be the main enforcer here. But what about a full-scale blockade?
A blockade of a nation is an act of war. Now, of course, China won't put it like that. They will say that it's a quarantine and this is not an independent country. We're just enforcing the law like they say with the Philippines.
So how would that work? Well, to go back to that first photo we showed you, it could start with China announcing exercises in a few zones near Taiwan's major ports. Only this time, they could be much closer to Taiwan and breach the country's air and maritime borders. But China could then announce that it's conducting a special law enforcement operation as punishment for what it calls Taiwanese separatist actions. That means ships bound for Taiwan would have to go all the way to China, and certain parts of the Taiwan Strait would be blocked off. Any ships that don't comply with Beijing's rules would be intercepted and possibly fired on.
I think in that case, what would be likely to see is, if not a bombardment, at least the threat of bombardment, and if not an invasion, at least a credible threat of invasion. Because I think that if there's a blockade that there's no signs of any invasion coming, Taiwan just has to not surrender. They just have to not give up. And
so once you see the ships completely surrendering by the CCP, that's the Chinese Communist Party, that's obviously a big sign. And I mean, they did their rehearsal drills to do this, these blockades. And it wasn't to the scale they would need to do if they actually did it. Because in order to do a blockade, you got to have basically no holes, and would have to use like hundreds and hundreds of ships, right, to do that. Maybe even thousands, right? Over 1,000. And that we haven't seen that yet. But if we did see that, that's definitely a sign to get ready. You said I'm helping the kid with homework. When we're finished, I'll jump. Oh, cool. Yeah. I know how that is, man. Well, my wife knows how that is, helping my son do homework. Man, that stuff takes a long time sometimes, man. Take a long time. He's lucky to have you. We're lucky to have you here.
And they can survive as an fairly independent nation.
But that's easier said than done. Now you have to remember that Taiwan is an island nation, home to about 23 million people.
Keelung, my home. I mean, not Keelung, but Taiwan, my home. 23. I'm one of the 23 million. Keelung, that's a port city. It's really cool over there.
And many people consider Taiwan's geography as a natural fortress in a conflict scenario. But that same strength is
a natural fortress. What's going on? Shadow Buddha, math and science, man. Shout out to the human race. Human race. Made in America, made in Taiwan.
Also its biggest weakness. As an island, Taiwan relies heavily on imports, and a lot of that passes through ports like this one in northern Taiwan. But how long could Taiwan last? Well, specifically, 96% of its energy and 70% of its food is all imported. But what if it's a full-on blockade? So nothing comes in and nothing comes out. Taiwan has enough liquid natural gas for 12 days of ordinary consumption, enough coal for 42 days, and crude oil stockpiles for 146 days. Taiwan's government has
146 days, okay.
also shed light on its food situation, with about 8 months worth of public grain reserves stockpiled. Taiwan has both public and private reserves, and officials
So 8 months, huh? 8 months for food.
say combined, it's enough for about a year. But experts say that without international intervention, Taiwan would only last a few months at best.
The key question for Taiwan then becomes not just a question of military and other defensive capabilities. It really comes down to societal resilience. So much of what goes on from Taiwan's side needs to happen well before any of these operations begin.
Taiwan has already started to prepare with plans to set up a task force to take a monthly inventory of the country's food reserves. But what if those stockpiles start to run low? Well, that puts Taiwan in a difficult situation, as it might have to try and break the blockade.
It's a really challenging environment for Taiwan to respond, because if Taiwan responds with force, then Taiwan looks like they're the one escalating the situation.
That's the whole point, huh? They're trying to get them to push their hand, right? I'll offend you by camping out on your doorstep. What you're gonna do? It's like, man, like in Oakland, East Oakland, dudes would like if they had beef with you, they need some passive aggressive stuff, and the aggressive stuff can really be aggressive, but the passive stuff would be parking their scraper, their car, on your driveway, right? Or you're blocking your driveway while they play their music and shit. They might not even be there. So in order for you to get out, you have to fucking say, hey, bro, you have to literally, sometimes they won't even be in their car and they'll be doing that, which is wild, because if you're playing your music, have your keys on or your car in a neighborhood like that, like especially on 79th Avenue where I used to live in Hillside, you're asking for trouble. I mean, they're looking for, I wish a motherfucker would try to do something to my car. So you literally got to go find where they are, their house or whatever, and be like, hey, bro, you got to move your car. And then, hey, who knows what will happen, right? Some passive aggressive shit, right? Gabe, Shadow Buddha says, if China invaded, do you think Taiwan would be threatened to sacrifice their chips? I've heard from on these shows and these talking heads, as well as people, American ex-military that used to work for TSMC. They said that they did logistics for them, or who knows what else they did. But anyway, they would literally plan is blow up the building, the factories, so no one could have them, right? So yeah, I think that's a definite possibility, man. That's a definite possibility. Yeah. What is magic? Good question. The easiest definition for me, my working definition, is the study of the entire universe and using that knowledge, said knowledge, as you see fit. Yeah. What's going on, man? What's up, Charles Darwin? Good to see you, man. Yeah, we'll get to the magic stuff right now. We're doing I'm learning knowledge of Taiwan right now, my home at the moment. Right? Knowledge of Taiwan. All right, wait. Let's do that though. Oh, did I? Okay, let me get my X back up. Let's do the quick definition, not quick definition of magic. Let's see. Hyperborean in the building. Legend. Let's see Damien real quick, what he has to say about magic. I like Damien. He's got some legal troubles.
Magic is an incredibly beautiful, life-affirming spiritual tradition that allows us to be co-partners in the act of creation.
Yes,
divinity.
sir.
It allows us to bring more divinity into our lives. That's what magic is. It's a process of evolving as a person to reach our highest possible potential, as well as rediscovering that part of us that always has and always will be connected to divinity. The tradition of magic that I teach, that I practice, it's spelled with a K, M-A-G-I-C-K. And what that means, it sort of signifies that this is not sleight of hand. This is more like an amalgamation of Gnostic Christianity and esoteric Judaism, a lot of energy circulation practices that you would find in ancient Chinese techniques such as Taoism. This is all of those things stripped of the dogma until we get to just the basic practices of what works. These are practices that allowed me to survive almost 20 years in prison. You know, I was facing some of the hardest circumstances and situations into the feeling that I had no control over my life whatsoever. If you're wanting to change the direction of your life, if you're wanting to change the form that reality is taking, that you're experiencing, this is where you want to start at. What I tried to do in this program is cover as many of the very basic practices as I possibly could so that we have a very strong foundation for building on and for being able to use for anything you want to use them for.
Yeah, Damien, he was sent to prison for 20 years, as he said, for convicted of killing a dude when he was a teenager, or a young adult. And yeah, and I'm sure some of those practices that he cultivated in his magical practices he learned, he helped him get through that. Definitely. Just like if there was a blockade, definitely going to have to use some magic to get through that. Those stressful times. So we're cultivating this knowledge to see how to move, how we can move, right? One thing I'll say is, I like this right here. Keep it ready. I like this right here. When men do better, let's say, men would do far better in life if they just weren't fat, for sure. Number one. Number two, made real money. Number three, stay away from crazy women and men. Number four, had a brotherhood. Number five, had combat skills. Number six, took ownership. Number seven, lifted weights. Number eight, ate and slept well. Number nine, had cool hobbies. It's not complicated. And number 10, practice magic. Yeah. Let's go. Blue Ivy in the building. Did you mean that? I think she meant it. Yeah, let's see this. Where are we? Where were we? On this Taiwan video. This video is dope, actually.
And
Are we right here?
in people. And many people consider Taiwan's geography as a natural fortress in a conflict scenario. But that same strength is also its biggest weakness. As an island, Taiwan relies heavily on imports, and a lot of that passes through ports like this one in northern Taiwan. But how long could Taiwan last? Well, specifically, 96% of its energy and 70% of its food is all imported. But what if it's a full-on blockade? So nothing comes in and nothing comes out. Taiwan has enough liquid natural gas for 12 days of ordinary consumption. Enough coal.
It comes down to societal resilience. So much. The key question for Taiwan then becomes not just a question of military and other defensive capabilities. It really comes down to societal resilience. So much of what goes on from Taiwan's side needs to happen well before any of these operations.
That's why I keep an eye on some of this stuff in Iran and used to in Ukraine, and other spots to get a heads up of some scenarios.
Begin.
Mind you, every scenario is different though.
Taiwan has already started to prepare with
But there's
plans
some
to set up a
there's some
task
patterns
force
though.
to take a monthly inventory of the country's food reserves. But what if those stockpiles start to run low? Well, that puts Taiwan in a difficult situation, as it might have to try and break the blockade.
It's a really challenging environment for Taiwan to respond, because if Taiwan responds with force, then Taiwan looks like they're the one escalating the situation. And same with if the United States intervenes militarily there too, creates
I mean, but come on, that's crazy though, because it's like such a bully and passive aggressive tactic, a blockade of an island.
a escalation dynamic that allows Beijing to
It is
of
what
be in
it
the
is,
driver's
though.
seat and allows them to kind of shape that narrative in a way that benefits them.
The biggest risk with the blockade is that
So they can pay the victim like, hey, we got to defend ourselves.
are you willing
China.
to fire on somebody who's trying to run it? I mean, because ultimately, I mean, you can't stop ships if they're willing to take a collision, they're willing to take a shouldering, if they're willing to push through and not care about running into somebody. You have to be ready to fire on.
There is a huge question and debate in how not just Taiwan, but other countries would try to break a blockade, because in the end, it ultimately comes down to how China will enforce its operation. That's why for the past few years, Taiwan has invested heavily in a few key areas that might be able to help keep sea lanes open. One of
We got a family friend of ours. He's a lieutenant on one of those ships, artillery lieutenant. So he's done a lot of, been really busy the last year, 2 years, constantly patrolling overtime.
those areas is
A
modernizing.
lot of time away from his family. That's what China keeps doing. They keep pushing the limits of the Taiwan military by flying over these non-territorial borders and whatnot. And every time they do that, the military, Taiwan military, has to spring to alert and confront it. That waste resources. China's playing the long game, the sleeping dragon.
The Navy and building smaller, faster ships that are stealthier.
I'm here in Zoying Naval Base in southern Kaohsiung, where the Navy is going to let us hop on aboard some of their
I was showing them about 40 minutes south of where I live.
some of their vessels to get a closer look at how they're training in the Taiwan Strait, defending against Chinese Coast Guard ships, naval ships.
During a training exercise, Taiwan's Navy let us hop on aboard a few of their Guojiang-class corvettes and Guanghua-class missile boats. These are newer ships that Taiwan is calling carrier killers, because while they look small, they can carry around a dozen anti-ship missiles, posing a threat to Chinese ships carrying out the blockade. Taiwan's Navy has also been investing in sea mines, which analysts say could be a huge deterrent. But speed is of the essence here, as once the blockade starts, China will probably not let Taiwan plant mines in the strait.
Charles Darwin says, I'm actually wondering if China would try to do something now, especially since they don't have access to Venezuela or Iranian oil anymore. Well, U.S. is tied up on Iran right now. Well, they better do something quick, because I don't think that Iranian conflict is going to last much longer. It's not sustainable for the U.S. I don't think they're going to do anything, China, right now. I'll tell you why.
Despite all the talk about how to respond to or break a blockade, analysts say the point of a blockade is not to start a war.
I believe very much that China wants to win a gray zone war because it doesn't want to have a shooting war. A shooting war would be tremendously destructive, not just to Taiwan, but to China as well. And not only.
You see, it's not like Taiwan's like a pushover or something. Of course, they're going to defend themselves. That means that people die, right? On both sides.
Just sort of in the physical destruction and all the economic damage, but it would isolate China on the world stage in an entirely new way.
This also begs the question, is Taiwan alone? A blockade of Taiwan would affect shipping and cost at least $2 trillion for the global economy. Chinese activity around Japan and the Philippines would also spike, leading to a tough decision of whether Taiwan's biggest ally, the U.S., intervenes.
The question is this a blockade? Is that an act of war? Do we go to war? That's not going to be the conversation. It's what are we going to do about the fact that we can no longer, that Taiwan, with whom we have a public law commitment to support their defense, what are we going to do if they can no longer guarantee their defense due to these new measures that China has put in place that don't really meet the definition of the word blockade and yet are very serious? So do we have flexible response options where we can notch things up, whether it be punitively against China or whether it be in support of Taiwan?
Most experts don't think that a blockade or a quarantine alone is enough to get Taiwan to surrender. And if Taiwan continues to be resilient in its methods to fight back against Chinese aggression, but with limited resources and geographical constraints, Beijing might be able to play the long game.
And so I truly believe that China, their primary strategy is eventually to get Taiwan to capitulate on, slowly over time.
I asked him a question. He didn't answer. I said, "How long have you been practicing magic?" Hyperborean. Did he say he was hidden? I don't see his shit. I don't think he's hidden. Shouldn't be. What up, everybody?
That does not mean that they are not going to try to prepare for war, because I think that China wants to have the option to go to war if in the end it decides that war is necessary.
So now we understand how the first big wave of escalation would take place in China's attempt to take Taiwan. But like we just heard from Powell, what if China does decide to invade? With a major battle operation already taking place in the seas around Taiwan, what about the skies? In the next episode, we're going to take a
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Did something change? Is China aggress? They aggress every day, man. If anything, I think they may be doing less flights over the island, or not over the island. That would be horrible. On the border, they're doing maybe less flights. However, they're always pushing the limits every day. I'm just going over this thing. We have a new segment called Made, the Human Race, Volume 1. Human Race. Yeah. Made in Taiwan. Made in Taiwan. Look, my wife is made in Taiwan. All right. So we're talking about these things. Joe, it's kind of inspired. The Made in Taiwan was inspired something I heard. First of all, it was weird. A review of a review of a review of you. I think you called Flow State racist, or they were saying that some of the people were saying that you call them a race. I don't know. And then I heard I don't know what happened. Maybe you can come up and talk to us about it, and also the topic about the human race. And I was like, I keep hearing about, racist and race and all this stuff. I was on Machine Lies' channel, and he was telling me how, reminding me how Cecil was up there and how it said his sub name was a racist. I'm like, okay, interesting. But yeah, I'm thinking about this, the human race, bro. Let's get back to it. That's what really matters, right? So, yeah. The human race, bro. This is what's really going on. What's really important. Yeah, so you're more than welcome to come up. Welcome. Let us know what's going on. Give us an update. And we can talk about these topics too as well. Let us know how you doing. How you doing? Hey. No worries, Joe. Taiwan took a recording of you laugh for their Sonic Chinese to get them away, right? The U.S. and UK are the main aggressors in the world. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah. So Made in Taiwan. So we just saw how China would start off their real aggression. They would these rehearsals they've been doing of trying to block or quarantine and then block the island would actually be ratcheted up if they were really trying to invade. They would do this blockade first. So that's what we were just reviewing. Yeah. What's up? What's the matter, you, my buddy? How's it going, bro? Yeah. So I think there's also interesting video about how would the U.S. I mean, how would Taiwan defend? How would Taiwan defend against a Chinese invasion? Check this out. And mind you, that there's only about 2 times a year an invasion. The window for invasion is plausible because of the weather in the Taiwan Strait. And that would probably be during the calmest times of the year, which is April, which is coming up in October. Yeah, because April, because this is when after the winter monsoons, which we just had the rains. The sea is not as rough right now, coming up in April, and it's before the onset of the typhoon season, which is usually very heavy in the summer with the rains. And October is also another time because this is the peak. This follows the peak of the typhoon season. That's typically from June to September, and the currents are pretty weak during that time. So April and October, right? Those are the main dates and whatnot. So how would Taiwan defend against a Chinese invasion?
This is China's military, deploying one of their largest amphibious fleets ever seen in an exercise. Hundreds of military ships, fishing vessels, fighter jets, and soldiers launching a simulated full-scale attack.
Notice they say fishing vessels because in order to have those numbers for a blockade and also to move troops, and the scale they need to use commercial ships as well, the military. Chinese CCP military.
This is footage from about 30 years ago. And while that might seem like a long time ago, it gives us a sense of what a potential invasion could look like.
And so for Taiwan, which is faced with this existential threat, how does it plan to stop China from landing? Well, in this video, we're going to break down Taiwan's overall coastal...
You see this? He said, "What's man?" He said, "I'm sorry not to make fun of someone's voice, but that guy sounds like a total munchkin. Why would you choose to worship a god? We represent the lollipop kill." Oh, he's talking about avian Buddha yesterday. Man, that was kind of out of pocket. Either way he was acting, being a drunkard, basically. I like the guy, but not when he behaves like that, though. You're talking about this. Hit the shorts.
Choose to worship a god who closes his eyes to the suffering of children. Why would you? Why would you choose to worship a god who closes his eyes to the suffering of children? Why would you?
I don't believe God does that. What I say is God, I don't think they closes his eyes. I think God, the supreme being, is aware of everything and does things that I can't even comprehend, probably, or reasons why. Or if I could, I don't see it, but I'm okay with that. So my point is, like, that's above my pay grade, kind of.
So you're okay with children being born and being bombed or born with genetic issues, and God is totally indifferent towards that. You're okay.
You see, you're asking me if I'm okay. Well, this is someone that had a child that was born with genetic issues, and it was one of the worst things that ever happened to me, watching her die when she was stillborn. Me and my wife and I being there. So yeah, I know these things. I don't have to have a theory about some kid getting bombed or having this actually happens to me.
I'm gonna tell you something.
So with that said, no, you're not. Please don't interrupt me when I'm saying this, because this is important to me, because I love my angel that died. That's her name, Angel, that passed away. And so with that said, I believe that there's a reason for everything, and that what I'm doing right now, my priority is not important.
Why
Yes, what's many good very astute you are. He interrupted your anecdote about Angel, my daughter who passed away. Rest in peace. What a smoke! Absolutely, bro. Just let us honor the ones who aren't here. Don't even listen. Not even listening. I appreciate you. What's the matter? You're one of my. You're like my favorite now, bro. you pay attention. You get it, and then you add with the comedy and the knowledge. Holy shit! All right, back to this Twitter. He does sound like a munchkin, though, Avian, right there. It's a very unique voice.
Coastal defense strategy, starting from the invasion buildup all the way to the landing.
Before we talk about boots on the ground and the massive armada that would try to cross the Taiwan Strait, we need to talk about the buildup that would happen beforehand.
在军事准备上面，永远要想，就是最不可能的，就是最危险。
Su Ziyun is one of the directors at the INDSR, a security-focused think tank here in Taipei. They've been working closely with the military and agreed to give us a closer look at what they say is the worst-case scenario.
大概在现代的情报科技会很早就知道，因为他如果要他可能要大规模的动员 mobilization 部队的调动、船舰的集结，这些都会有一个 sign 或 signal 可以发现。但是我们还是一样，这是一个 worst case。假设他是用 surprise attack， 利用常常在台湾周边的这个
surprise attack，
突然变成攻击，台湾还是要防护。
Now, for this episode, we spoke to multiple analysts to get a general sense of how things would most likely unfold.
The important thing to remember is that if you want to successfully conduct an invasion, you need thousands, maybe millions of people involved in this type of an attack. So it's a major logistics effort, and that's really, really hard to hide. We're talking weeks, if not perhaps like more.
Interesting enough, what's like most people, or if they are terrified, they hide it really well. They push it down because they're just living their life from day to day. I think that it's been a threat since technically from 1949, and absolutely in the last 10 years I've been here, every year it gets ratcheted up more. I don't know if that's because of it's a combination of the media cycles, the nonstop news, but yeah, it is good that like they don't seem to dwell on it. But things have definitely changed in the last year and a half, 2 years. I think people taking it a little bit more seriously.
Over a month of just gathering people into the right places, getting them the billets, and then getting them onto their transports.
Absolutely, me too. I was scared from it.
Estimates from different think tanks show that at least around 500,000 troops would be needed to attempt this kind of operation.
500,000?
Other reports sometimes mention numbers that surpass even 1 million troops. And in terms of ships, we're looking at tens of thousands of naval and transport ships that would need to carry all of those people and
tens of thousands
equipment across the Taiwan Strait. This is all considered what analysts say is the nightmare scenario.
所以所有的准备都是 worst case。那当然我们不希望走到战争，可是你要prepare for war to keep peace.
Now, since
urban warfare,
President Tsai's second term, Taiwan has tried to tweak its coastal defense strategy to become just a bit more offensive. That means instead of waiting, Taiwan has the options to try and strike and hit targets before they start making the trip across the Taiwan Strait. So chronologically speaking, Taiwan would most likely start with laying mines. Lots and lots of mines. Taiwan has been working on this kind of capability for quite some time, using small ships like these to lay mines that would explode once they detect an enemy.
And that means things like mining international waters. It's certainly not a great look. It could hit passing ships. I mean, most civilian ships will have fled if they know a conflict is coming. The ultimate decision point will be how effective are the long-range strike options.
Plus, after the conflict ends, those mines are going to be there, floating up around there. What's the matter? You says, while we're providing a very poor example attacking Iran, that can't make things better. Yeah, exactly. And not only it's a poor example. Yeah, that's what China uses that, in terms of look at the US. They're trying to tell us, to back off Taiwan. Look what they're doing. They're kidnapping presidents and they're murdering leaders in other countries, right? So absolutely right. Under pressure.
Over the past 10 years, Taiwan has also made major investments into systems like the HIMARS, which is a very mobile rocket launcher system. The HIMARS is able to fire the ATACMS missile, which can reach the coastline of mainland China. Experts say in a full-out war, Taiwan has the option of conducting preemptive strikes where the PLA are gathering.
ATACMS weapon systems have a range of about 300 kilometers and would allow Taiwanese forces to reach in pretty deep to hit both the ports where the personnel and the ships are massing, but perhaps even deeper to hit some of those logistics nodes, some of those big stockpiles of ammunition and water, which would make life very difficult on the Chinese military.
It would be tough to say how effective those attacks would be for Taiwan, as the closer the attack is to China, the more its military is protected by its network of air and missile defense. Taiwan also has the ability to send elite special forces and frogmen, which are the equivalent to the US's Navy SEALs. But because of their highly classified and covert missions, not much is known about this unit, but they can sabotage and attack Chinese military sites.
Cayman Island is right off the coast. It usually is about 100 miles. Taiwan is from mainland China. But there's an island that's very close to mainland China. It's called Cayman Islands. They make galeon, like the Taiwanese whiskey. And from there, they also have a military base right there. Very close to mainland China.
So I think Taiwan can do things that would make the invasion harder, that would complicate.
Funny thing is, 2 years ago, when Nancy Pelosi came to Taiwan, which caused the biggest rehearsal blockade from China, right? They surrounded the island and all this, did their, intimidation tactics. On that Cayman Island, they were having raves, foam parties. They were like, fuck you. We're going to party. That's wild, man. During that time.
Chances are Chinese military planners would have already accepted that some number of its forces would be getting hit while they are mobilizing. It would have calculated that it accepts this risk, and it will probably still be able to launch the invasion.
But in the lead up to the war, Chinese defense plans call for a joint fire strike campaign. That means that China would launch hundreds of missiles and try and destroy Taiwanese military facilities and move in closer to support that landing. Taiwan would try to use its air defenses to protect those areas.
如果中国决定采取军事冒险行动，很可能就是会从东部战区、南部战区对台湾进行攻击。那同时，它的航空母舰或是所谓两栖攻击舰也会尝试穿越巴士海峡、宫古海峡，从台湾东部进行包围。台湾可能选择就是所谓的不对称作战，利用各种飞弹 （air defense）。
Asymmetrical warfare that main objective is to hurt you at all costs and make you make the ops question why they even got in this conflict, even if they win. Yeah, it's very wild, bro. This ain't Call of Duty, man.
或是 anti-ship missile 成立一个这个 deny zone， 阻绝中国海空军靠近台湾。他如果不能登陆，不能占领台湾，
they can't land, they can't conquer Taiwan.
Taiwan's navy might try to hold the line against China, but given the sheer size of Beijing's navy, Taiwan won't be able to match China's ship for ship. But taking out these ships is still a big priority, because if China's destroyers are still operating, they could protect and bring in more troops across the strait, and China wants to be able to control this area.
And the reality is that I think the Chinese are going to want to try to establish air dominance over the island and try to destroy key naval and air facilities before they start closing in on Taiwan itself.
This is where Taiwan is hoping to utilize its growing stock of anti-ship missiles to take out warships that start to make their way across the Taiwan Strait. This includes US-made Harpoon missiles and domestically made Xiongfeng missiles. Depending on where China begins to cross, think tanks estimate it would take around 12 hours to cross the strait.
From an anti-ship perspective, you need to have as much mass as possible, as many Harpoon systems, HIMARS rockets, indigenous anti-ship missiles, that you can sink those ships, even if they're decoys, right? You have enough of them where you're going to take out most of the landing ships. If you sink the majority of the fleet, then this is not doable. Then China is lost.
Taiwan can also use its air force to attack Chinese warships as they cross the Taiwan Strait. But from what we've seen with Taiwan's military drills and our conversations with analysts, that might not be the most effective. Instead, Taiwan would probably pull back the majority of its fleet to make sure that it can preserve power for as long as possible. If you want to learn more about that strategy,
hopefully some of these assets will survive to be able to operate a bit closer in to help direct those fires that we had talked about, to make life difficult on any ships that China attempts to send Taiwan's way. But the challenge is for Taiwan, it just can't afford to have enough of these ships and enough of these jets. And China's got so many assets at its disposal to take these things out that it's a basic numbers game.
As these large Chinese transport ships make their way towards the center of the Taiwan Strait and into Taiwan's territory, many of these warships would start to disembark into smaller amphibious landing craft and hovercraft to spread out and increase the chance of survival.
D-Day,
Helicopters
huh?
would also join that push and try and make it ashore. But this would be one of the most dangerous parts of the invasion for China, and also the most decisive.
If all else has failed, deterrence has faltered, Xi Jinping has decided to attack, this would be the decisive moment at which to really wear down the invasion force.
Blow up everything
Aside
in the
from
beaches.
trying to avoid the variety of sea mines in the ocean, Chinese ships would be up against a wide array of Taiwanese defenses as they come within 60 to 40 kilometers of the coast. This would include various types of artillery fire from howitzers as they splash all across the Taiwan Strait. Taiwan's Thunderbolt 2000 rocket system and HIMARS would also engage vessels as soon as they come within range. Taiwan would also unleash hundreds of unmanned systems and suicide drones to hit incoming ships, turning the Taiwan Strait into what many U.S. observers say is a hellscape. Drones of all different shapes and sizes could be sent to complicate Chinese planning and efforts to make it ashore.
The beachhead is the critical point. If you can knock that beachhead back quickly, then you have your chance of surviving an amphibious invasion go up pretty significantly. Now, if you think about Taiwan, similar sort of thing. The better able that the Chinese are to establish a beachhead, protect it, build up their forces, and kind of surge outward from there, the more likely they're going to be able to successfully invade the island.
As Chinese ships continue to push forward and come within 10 kilometers, these landing ships would be within range of Taiwan's fleet of 90 strong attack helicopters.
90, that's all.
Plenty of experience flying these helicopters in the mountains, coming out to shoot quickly before returning to safety. Now imagine you're a PLA soldier and you're roughly 5 kilometers out from Taiwan's coast and closing in. Well, somewhere inland, hiding in the terrain, Taiwan's newly acquired Abrams, as well as newly upgraded tanks, would be firing non-stop at landing ships as they reach the shore. Guided tow missiles would also be whizzing through to find their targets, controlled by soldiers in military vehicles.
As an amphibious armor officer in the Marine Corps, I do know exactly what it is like to plan to come ashore. So I have been on the proverbial beach, but it was on the attacker's side from the attacker's perspective. What we're thinking about doing here is trying to create what in the First World War, Germans called the storm of steel.
The storm of steel.
In essence, you make it so lethal for any Chinese Marine, Chinese infantryman to clamber off of that landing craft, that assault boat, because at some point they got to get out and do their job. You make it so lethal, so deadly, that anybody that survived that long doesn't have much longer to go.
Taiwan's annual Hangguang military exercises offer good insight into what this part of the defense strategy would look like, as units would also combine that tank fire with extra support from javelins and rocket launchers. Every year, Taiwan's military runs through the motions of how they would defend an incoming landing, and we can see that last part of this defense on full display. You can see in this drill that the beach is not exactly empty, and that's because in an invasion, The military would move tons of obstacles and barriers along the coastline to make it more difficult for the invading force. This would also involve sinking ships near crucial shallow waters and covering certain parts of the beach with old cars, barbed wire, tires, and even more mines. Basically, making it as difficult as possible to even take a step on the beach, let alone make it to shore. But what happens if they do make it to the shore? Well, that's where China would meet Taiwan's military head on. And we actually spoke to some of the soldiers as they were training on the beach.
And the military has given us these bulletproof vests and equipment for safety purposes because that popping sound that you're hearing is live fire ammunition. Now, the Army does these routine shooting exercises about once every 3 months in order to give their soldiers a different kind of training. Instead of shooting inside of a controlled base, they can do it outside, potentially where they could do the...
Are the regular people there armed? No, they're not. No, there's no... Unless you're a police officer or military, or there's very special circumstances, citizens aren't allowed to have weapons here. No. Which is, I mean, coming from America, it's like, what the hell are you thinking? Especially with a threat like they're wargaming right now. Yes, this is the thing. Now, in the last year, I've noticed that they've had these gun clubs or tactical workshops that people, civilian tactical workshop that people can learn tactics, with weapons. But no, there's no regular people aren't armed here. Do you think that's just prolonging the inevitable of a Chinese takeover? I mean, if they were citizens did have guns, yeah.
Fighting.
We meet up with the company commander, who explains that his soldiers have been doing this kind of training for a while as they get more familiar with their area of responsibility. And this training starts with routine shooting practice.
我们今天用4个靶位，然后配合障碍靶的部分对海实施射击，那会受到天候的影响，然后以及风速的影响。那对于它射击的精准度跟它的环境的掌握度，它就会特别去磨练官兵的部分。
Some analysts have highlighted this area as a strategic position in a possible invasion, which is why the northern coastline of Taiwan has seen the military step up its training in these areas outside of their base.
我们平常制式的靶场是比较安全的一个环境，那在海岸射击这部分可以去强化磨练官兵的射击成效。因为观音海滩刚好是在我们单位的守备地境内可使用的野战训场，所以我们利用观音海滩射击来训练官兵在野外以及自己的守备地境来做训练射击。
But this is just one small unit, and there are thousands of soldiers all over the country practicing how to defend their own area of responsibility. Now,
Darwin said during World War II, the Japanese were hesitant to attack the U.S. because they knew the population was armed. I think Taiwan should reconsider. Something to think about, definitely, huh? In Taiwan, a lot of people that have guns are basically gangsters and police, and even both sides don't really see them that much. Like, yeah, I'd say 50 to 60% of the police have guns here. Like normally in America, if you're a traffic cop or whatever, or even detective, you're always gonna have your sidearm, right? But here, no, not so much. So a lot of times I'll see cops riding around without their gun. They have their holster with no gun, and gangsters have guns too. I mean, they don't flaunt them, and it's probably less rare that they use them compared to the U.S. for sure. But they're still there though. They have their own infighting they do, right? But yeah, I mean, there'd be an American with a gun behind every blade of grass, right? Charles Darwin, World War II.
I'll add in everything that we've talked about, from the mines, to the missiles, to the tanks and the drones. China will no doubt have a tough time getting soldiers across the strait.
And the idea is not to fight in every single street. This is not supposed to be, burn Taiwan to the ground in order to save it, but to be ready for the fact that, yes, some forces will need to be looking at the other side of the Taiwan Strait, but some forces need to be ready to do battle from even before the battle starts, for the streets, for critical infrastructure, So if some of these things fall, it is not a fundamental problem to the defense of the rest of Taiwan.
Yeah, there's definitely air raid shelters everywhere in my neighborhood. Everywhere you go, there's little signs on people's houses and businesses that'll say, like, if they have a basement, it'll say air raid shelter, air shelter. If shit goes down, you're supposed to be able to just go in there, right?
But remember, landing is just one part of the invasion. And analysts say that if Taiwan can identify the threat early, then its chances of repelling an attack are high.
So like I said, the April, Taiwan Strait very much more calm. October as well, right? Those are the two times that are favorable for an invasion, for an amphibious assault. But even then, it's going to be looks like it's a bloodbath, right? Looks like a bloodbath if you're going to try to do an invasion right there, right? On both sides. Yeah. Let's cleanse the palate and look at why someone would want to invade, maybe for the Taiwanese breakfast, which is good. Taiwan's known for their breakfast. To switch it up a little bit, let's do this. Taiwan breakfast.
Do you know what this, and this have in common? They're all iconic Taiwanese breakfasts. Let's take a bite.
I was surprised to know before I came here that Taiwan's known for their breakfast. Because I work so hard.
All sorts of YouTube videos talking about Taiwanese breakfast, and they usually spotlight saobing, youtiao, and doujiang.
Saobing.
These can be categorized as Chinese-style Taiwanese breakfast. Why Chinese-style? Because these foods were not commonly seen in Taiwan prior to the retreat of the Republic of China government from China to Taiwan.
Yeah, 1949.
Prior to the retreat, many of the Han people in Taiwan immigrated from southeastern China. The carb intakes were usually rice or rice-based foods such as congee instead of flour-based foods. Really quickly, why is it called congee? It's tamil for water from cooked rice. In Taiwan, it's called shifan in Mandarin, juk in Hakka, or either muai or me in Taiwanese, depending on if you're from the north,
which is like porridge,
or the south. Back to Chinese-style breakfasts. The iconic saobing and youtiao are flour-based foods. So how did it become so popular in Taiwan?
Saobing, that's good. That's that nice bun, really crispy, so good. I don't eat it with the dough sticks, but just that straight out the oven is so good.
Well, it's all thanks to United States of America and the Republic of China government. You see, in 1950, US needed a place to dump its surplus of wheat. All the while, Republic of China government needed to make more money. So they exported the more expensive rice and imported the cheaper wheat. The ROC government proceeded to push for more flour-based food. This led Taiwanese eating habits going from rice-only cuisine
that makes sense.
to also include noodles and flour-based food.
That's why I prefer Taiwanese food over Chinese food. Right? Taiwanese breakfast and the rise of the working woman. I'm used to Taiwan. Taiwanese is breakfast kind of westernized. The wheat.
While Chinese-style breakfast may look the most fascinating, the most common breakfast shops in Taiwan actually sells hamburgers.
Yep, hamburgers, sandwiches.
Sandwiches and egg pancakes. Wait, that sounds like a deli breakfast. Yeah, it sure does.
It does.
Probably why not many YouTubers talk about it. In 1980s, this Western-style breakfast picked up in popularity due to the rise in feminism. After the end of martial law in Taiwan, women's rights...
1987 martial law, the losers of the Chinese Civil War, KMT, they had a martial law from 1949 to only 1987. And you couldn't speak against the government or you would be disappeared or killed, even if you were suspected. My son was in a movie called, I can't think of the name right now. A Beautiful Fog, right? When it talks about that. And in 87, we had their first elections.
Were more protected by the law, and society was also more accepting of a married woman having a job. Crazy idea, I know, right? However, despite the rise of professional women, the responsibility of preparing meals still lies on the woman. But a professional woman
What's
ain't
wrong with that? That's okay. That's her role.
gonna wake up early just to cook. So instead, she simply buys breakfast for herself and the family. So why these Western foods? Previously mentioned Chinese-style breakfast took time to cook, even for stores. In addition, they usually required large stoves or pots. Western foods, with the magic of freezers, can be packaged, frozen, defrosted, and cooked easily. Today's Taiwan, you'll see these breakfast shops have 30 to 40 items. Simply,
yeah, a lot of items.
An egg pancake, like a savory crepe, would have 10 different toppings, at least. Last is the Taiwanese-style breakfast, or maybe just miscellaneous, as each part of Taiwan and each culture developed their own breakfasts. Here, we want to talk about a special breakfast from Tainan, the beef soup. Not to be confused with
Tainan, that's where I'm at.
Beef noodle soup. In 1980s, Taiwan's economy was primarily from agriculture and manufacturing. In general, this meant a lot of manual labor. To sustain the body, a hearty breakfast with a lot of protein was sought after. At the same time, Tainan had Taiwan's largest cattle exchange as well as the largest slaughterhouse. This meant Tainan folks were always able to eat the freshest beef. Making the beef soup was fairly easy. Thinly slice the fresh beef into a bowl, pour in some hot, light beef soup, get yourself a bowl of rice, and there, a hearty breakfast for a working person. One thing to note is that this beef is never refrigerated. These are iconic Taiwanese breakfasts and how they came to be. What iconic breakfast can you think of? I've always wondered how bangers and mash came about.
All right. Interesting. That's the food that feeds a nation. I know you're hungry. I'm hungry now too. I'm definitely hungry. Yeah, I'm hungry. Well, let's listen. Maybe this will make you less hungry. Let's look at some of this. I wanted to show this interesting thing about magic. You know, magic is the magic with a K, the study of the entire universe and using that knowledge. Right? Simple.
Maybe I just like saying it. Bangers and mash. Bangers and mash.
Bangers and mash. Let's see. What is magic? Theories of magic.
This week's video has a rather newbie-friendly theme, but I'm hoping that those of you who already have a good idea of what magic is might find the later parts of the video at least a little...
Abracadabra.
What is magic?
All right, Charles.
Probably the most requested topic from the comment section of the videos on the Foolish Fix channel. Well, it's a big topic, and I mean a really big topic. It's a bit like asking, what's IT? Where to even start? What to include? How much detail should I give you to give you an accurate idea, but still make it fit in a 15-minute video? So here's a disclaimer. Whatever I say here can probably be accurately contradicted one way or another, with any number of exceptions or alternate ways of thinking about things. But hopefully it can be a starting place for people who are very new to the topic.
Let's see.
And want something to grasp a hold of, a strategically located and well-defined landing pad, as it were, from where to safely go exploring for yourselves. And when you come back from your adventure with the eyes of experience, you'll see that the landing pad may not have been as stable as it originally looked, but it still allowed you to start your adventure. So let me start with a very general definition. Magic is the study of the universe and then the practical use of that knowledge. But wait, isn't that science? I hear you ask. Science is the study of the physical, material.
Magic is the entire universe.
Aspects of the universe. It uses the measuring standards and implements of the material universe to observe the material universe. And it's extremely effective and extremely successful at doing so. Someone who's trying to work out how the material world works and who's not using the scientific method is like someone trying to take your temperature but refuses to use a thermometer. It's just the best tool for the job, and we should absolutely use it for its intended purpose, discovering and manipulating the workings of the material realm. But magic posits that there's more to the universe than just its material aspect, and that the scientific method is only useful for mapping a small part of it, the material part of it. Using the scientific method to try and map the non-manifest areas of the universe, it's like trying to measure how tall you are using your bathroom scales. And no, when I talk about the non-manifest universe, I'm not talking about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. I'm talking about consciousness, the collective unconscious, and why certain deities pop up in separate historical traditions which would have had no contact with each other. So yes, to reiterate, magic is the study of the universe and then the practical use of that knowledge.
Magic is the study of the entire universe and then the practical use of that knowledge, the entire universe. Nothing's off limits, right? Nothing's off limits.
Now, what do I mean by practical use? Well, a couple of things.
Use.
First of all, one of the things that a magician discovers early on is that the universe is mental. I don't mean as in, whoa, the universe is completely mental, although there is an argument to suggest that too. No, what I mean is that the universe is made of mind. Most scientists assume, because it is an assumption, that the universe is material and that consciousness arises out of matter. If you get the right molecules in the right quantity and in the right order, that creates consciousness. Magicians assume that the basic building block of the universe is consciousness and that matter arises out of consciousness. There's this theory I rather like, which proposes that the brain is a receptor of consciousness, like a radio antenna that tunes into consciousness, and not a generator of consciousness, as most people suppose. So once this is your general assumption, that the universe prima materia is consciousness and not matter, a whole world of possibilities opens up to you. And phenomena which previously seemed paranormal suddenly make much more sense.
All the stuff that science leaves out, and then some. What's the matter? You says, I saw someone give a really good scientific explanation of magic. I'm trying to recall their name. Okay? I want to hear that. Charles Darwin says, would it be fair to liken it to medicine? You have different doctors for different things because no one can know everything. Right. Different specialists or whatnot. And then there's the holistic doctors, right? The look at the whole body as one instead of being departmentalized. Yep, I studied quantum mechanics at university. Reality is a trip, right? It is a trip. So many possibilities, right?
It also follows that if we're more than just a body and synaptic discharges in the brain creating the illusion of consciousness, then taking care of the actual totality of what constitutes the self is going to take more than just bodily hygiene and a yearly checkup with your dentist.
I forgot about the beer. You want some? How about some ether?
What?
Never mind.
What's going on, man? What's up, Landry? Praise God. Praise God, he's on mute.
Rookie mistake, dude. It's because you gotta keep muting because, you know, there's some loud ass people in this house.
Yeah, you got your. Hey, is that who I think it is? Yeah.
Nope, somebody else.
That's Ezra.
It's a third party.
The magical Ezra. It's good. Yeah, good. Doing some new segment series called The Human Race. This is volume 1, made in Taiwan. What is magic? The human race. I heard these things about race all the time. Why don't we just talk about the human race? Make it simple, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing here.
What's the new thing? Or that thing you sent me about the race?
Oh yeah. I just heard. I thought that was interesting. That clip is because it was so meta. It was a reaction to a live stream to a reaction to a reaction. And instead of making another reaction to the actual video, I decided to do a creative project and talk about the human race.
Well, you know, I think we also had that idea once to mock that, right? Where we're going to do like a reaction to a reaction to a reaction, like all private streams. I still think it's a good idea.
We still have it. I think we already have 4 of them, or 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, we do. We're sitting on a lot. That's what I do. Like 90% of the stuff I do doesn't ever come out. You know.
Yeah.
But
what do you think about this this definition of magic? I like it, where the guy is saying magic is the study of the entire universe, and then using that knowledge practically.
I can do that. Yeah. I need to use some of that, dude, for real.
Yeah.
Make some stuff happen in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Big stuff. Am I being too macho for you?
No, you seem like yourself right now.
Myself, yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, man. I know. See, things like they always stick with you. You know, you don't forget. Where I forget, like almost.
Of course not.
I forget too much, but it's kind of probably. I don't know. It's not normal, right? I definitely don't think that's a normal thing for people to forgive, and forget. So he said, "Wait. So how are you and Tommy doing? I saw that you had a stream playing."
Yeah, but I forgive. I forgive and I remember things. But in the end, I forgive everybody. That's the thing. I think you have you're in that mode a little bit, pretty much too, in a sense. But yeah, Tommy, we have a stream. I see you're forgiving. Yeah, maybe you don't make a big show of it, but I think you are. You give a lot of people chances and stuff, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like I've seen people really, really hold on to things like for no. Dude, you remember that neighbor I sent you that picture of?
Oh yeah, he was he was hurt
right now. Do you want to hear what he says?
Yeah, see what he has to say. Is this real magic?
Damn it, he hung up. Who is this? Is this him? Message. Yeah, it's him. He's asking to borrow money.
Oh, fuck that. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yesterday there was a cop car here, and he was like, "Hey, can you hold on to my laptop for me?" I was like, "What?"
Dude, this guy's tripping, bro.
Yeah, dude.
Oh yeah, so I see you in the back. Real quick, I'll bring you up 1 sec. Tommy and I were doing this stream, which was funny. I mean, that was partly from your broadcast, and we had actually had a conversation, and it was a good conversation. And I really enjoyed that movie, Civil War. I saw it 2 nights ago for the first time, and I'm like, hey, Tommy is the first person that told me about this movie like a long time ago. So I sent him an email. I said, hey, you want to talk about this movie? Kind of break it down, give our takes on it. He's like, yeah. So this tomorrow, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern, we're having a broadcast. Should be interesting.
Yeah, man.
This one
should be interesting.
You saw that. You made a comment on that too, right? On that whatchamacallit, that movie as well, right? Wait, HYPERBOREAN. Well, let me bring him up.
Oh, I didn't know because you had the thing. I didn't know.
What's going on, HYPERBOREAN? Hello.
Not much, man. Not much.
Thanks for waiting, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got Landry here too. Yeah. So I was telling Landry that the next stream I have is going to be with Tommy, panel versus management. We're going to be talking about that movie, Civil War. I don't know if you heard that movie.
Saw it twice.
Civil War. Yeah. You saw it twice?
I was fascinated by it, yeah.
Yeah. What fascinated you about it?
Well, it was very non-traditional, like in the storytelling aspect. It was very it just took a lot of turns, and I just had no idea what was going to happen next. You know what I mean? I really liked that when it moved, because so many things are very by the books and cookie cutter.
It was really intense, but not in a exhausting way for me, because there's a lot of bad things. There's some bad things that happened, but it wasn't like some other movies I've watched recently where it's just, oh my God, one thing after another. But I don't know. It's a very surreal movie though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen it before?
Man. The violence was pretty, I don't know. I kind of like violence when it's artsy.
Yeah. Of course, I like the music. It's what do they call it? A21 Studios or whatever.
A24. Is that what it is?
Yeah, they're very top notch, artistic.
A21.
A21. Yeah. I like this. So we're gonna talk about that tomorrow. That one scene does it where that guy. I always forget his name. He's married to Kristen Dirks, where he just blows that guy away from not being American, with the red glasses. Yeah.
How do you feel about that kind of nationalism?
That's I'm not a fan of that. I mean, I can understand where it comes from. Yeah, no, that's not cool. Especially if it's America. I get it. We're a proud nation. If you just let any old buddy come in here, pretty much, you can be seen as being overrun. But with that said, it's 2026. A lot of things are different now. Yeah, I don't know. Hostile. Have you ever heard of that movie called Civil War?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
I've heard of it. I've not seen it.
Yeah, it's talking about an invasion of America. Yeah, which is funny because that was the first half of this broadcast was about Taiwan, about China, what it would look like if they tried to invade, and what would Taiwan do. In a sense, China sees that as a civil war, even though we're our own nation here in Taiwan. But yeah, so yeah. Landry, we're gonna get back into this magic stuff. Have you anything to add about?
We can get back into magic stuff. Yeah,
let's get into this magic stuff.
I love magic.
Yeah. By the way, you create magic every day on the screen. Now in your house now. Hyperborean. I think I don't know if you heard my question. I said, are you a magic practitioner?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. How would you define it? Magic.
I would. Well, it's not as, no pun intended, not as black and white as it seems. But I would say, yeah, there's basically two modes of magic. One would be internal, and the other would be external. To externalize change, and the other would be to internalize change. One belonging to the white magical practice, and the other the black. There's more. There's like a spectrum of magical arts, or the high arts, or the low arts. Right? It's not as simple, right? To me, it's internal. To me, it's an internal practice. I've never been concerned with changing the world. I've never been into black magic or low magic.
That would be exterior magic.
Yeah.
Black magic. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You're trying to invocate and evocate for the reason of, for the purpose of having some spirit perform a task to finish or achieve some goal for you.
Yeah. And it seems like the collective consciousness, most people are involved in that, or at least definitely the quote unquote influencers, huh? Trying to get people to have their perspective or awareness on said thing that they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's subtle, there's propaganda magic for sure. Just on the mental plane. I've always been more concerned with the higher, like the theurgical, the thaumaturgical, the spiritual side of magic is what I've been more concerned with. So inevitably you end up turning inwards. It's like a introspective art. So I've not been concerned with like mind control or manipulating people in relationships to gain success or money or relationships or whatever.
Yeah. So you're trying to just work for your own purposes, own transformation, and
to try to ultimately realize what reality is, to understand reality.
Yeah. Landry, do you see any resonance with that? Trying to understand reality? How are your most?
It always goes back to like the concept of God, right? Like what it all means, or like, are things written in stone? Do you believe in miracles? Because like, would a magic be like the same as miracle?
A miracle meaning that something that's highly improbable happening?
Like impossible. Like say healing somebody who's chronically ill, the 100% chance they die.
I'm open-minded to that.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
I don't know, man. I'm hoping so because I struggle with a lot of my health issues and all that. And when they flare up, I get like it's like PTSD. I think about the past. I think what can I do? Is there anything that I can do, or do I have to just like let go because it's not my path? You know what I mean? So these questions are just they're hard for me to really nail down because I'm so like torn between being optimistic and bitter.
I see. Hyper, what would you say to that if someone's trying to get some physical peace or peace of mind from?
Yeah, I would say that that's a lost cause. It's a fruitless endeavor because you can't out of the physical. You can't. That's the point of the physical. It belongs to becoming. It exists within the polarity of the material cosmos. So there's always some sort of tension. And as soon as you resolve that tension, there's a new obstacle or a new problem that presents itself to you. There's constantly problems that are introduced into the physical world, and it moves stage by stage. It's like it moves in degrees. So as soon as you accomplish something, there's a new task at hand or whatever.
Like Landry, he just left a new I was gonna segue him. I'm saying like because his narrative was like he had the horrible stomach issues, right? And it seemed that like when we met him about 6-7 months ago, like he was starting to get better. And with that said, it seemed like a new struggle happened.
Yeah,
with him, trying to. And I'm speaking for him because he left. I mean, with the Panelverse stuff and the dynamics with the people and whatnot, and so that seems like a struggle that he had on his consciousness for a long time. And maybe he didn't have the stomach problems, like you said, but like you said, there's a struggle.
Yeah. To reiterate, when I say it's a lost cause or a fruitless endeavor, I don't mean that you can't remedy an issue. You can. You absolutely can solve problems, but you ultimately won't. It won't result in like some finality of resolve. You won't have. There's no end. Right? The real end is in being or in the spiritual, not in the physical. So like, yeah, you can remedy or cure your stomach problems.
Yeah.
You can do all that. You can remedy your bank account, your relationships, but it'll never stop in the physical world.
It's kind of like reminds me of our Shadow Buddha and I's conversations we have about Buddhism and whatnot. For example, like the Buddhist tenet, like life is suffering.
Yeah.
Type whatnot.
It's a grind. Yeah.
It's a grind. Yeah. It's a grind, man. Yeah. We got somebody in the back. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's good, man?
Oh, what's up? What's up, Twilight? Good to see you, bro. Yeah.
Hey, yo, what's good, everybody?
What's up, guy?
Hail, comrade.
Yeah, hail Lucifer Christos.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Look at my name.
No, I know. That's why I said it.
That's why I said it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. Today's episode is the Made in Taiwan, the Human Race, Volume 1. What is magic? Here we go.
Yeah. I noticed, of course. So, obviously, I have a lot to say about that. So, I figured I'd jump in.
For sure.
And, I didn't even see Hostiles. So, I just woke up and I figured I'd throw my sense in. What is magic, right?
What is magic to you?
Magic is the changing of consciousness through really like it's really the changing. Well, it's the changing of awareness through the harnessing of the visible and invisible forces of nature. Now, when I say nature, I mean like the nature of the human mind and consciousness itself as well. And I believe that all magic is actually just magic. There is no really like distinction. The rest of it is just kind of a way for us to understand it better. Except that you could say that there is, you know, I heard as I was coming in, you were talking about internal and external, and I would agree with that. You know, as of like left and right, black and white, I would have a little bit of a different definition on that, because realistically speaking, even white magic could be considered malicious in some way, because if you're doing magic for anyone other than yourself, and you're doing it against someone's will, so even say if you're healing somebody,
yeah,
but they didn't ask for it, that's actually going against someone's will, right? You could also make the argument that all magic is black magic for the simple fact that as a magician, you are saying that everything is not perfect, and that it needs to be, you know, something needs to change.
Yeah.
And so for that, by that very precept, you are actually, you know, going against the natural order of things.
Yeah.
So it's actually a nuanced statement. And then, as I say before, when we were talking about Crowley and all that, you know, basically, black magic also has to do with the stellar tradition. You know, that has to do with the stars. You know, and the moon, as opposed to the, you know, the right hand path. You know, is more to do with the solar. And as I said, really, these things are more just a way to understand different types of practice. They're not really necessarily, you know, written in stone or objective realities that are final. You know,
okay,
it's more of a way of just trying to create some kind of you know, framework that makes sense. Because really, the truth is that magic is magic. What makes it dark or you know, white or black is the intention of the magician. You know.
Okay, let's stop right there. Thank you. That was great. Let me I think Hyperball, you're about to jump in there a little while ago.
No. I was agreeing. That's when I started my answer. My disclaimer was it's not as black and white as people make it out.
Yeah. Yes, you said that.
Literally
Right.
not that.
Yeah.
It's so nuanced and so subtle of a subject. It is the most subtle of subjects.
Absolutely.
I guess what would you say though to someone like me who likes to respects the fact that things are complex and nuanced? I love nuance and the minutia in life and whatnot and things. However, I do also, there's a part of me that likes to hear things in the simplest form, at least, and that's not disrespecting them, but they're common. But you know what I mean? That's why I was like, the definition, I was like, wow, that's a cool definition about the study of the entire universe, and then using that practical. You know, that's very vague and whatnot, but yeah. And then Hyper came on and oh yeah, I was going to ask you too, Hyper. You had said spiritual. That was something. The higher forms. What are you getting at when you say that the spiritual and the hyper?
Yeah, what belongs to the self, essentially. What's behind and underneath the body, the ground.
Okay.
Yourself. Whether you want to call that the self or, you know, the will or the spirit, whatever, you can throw any kind of nomenclature you want on it. That's just what I use.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
these are ultimately forms. Right. Yeah.
I use that word to distinguish it from matter. I create like a cosmology.
Well, that would definitely separate when the video we were watching. I don't know if you saw it. The guy he said his definition of magic, the entire universe. And when he was making, someone said, "Hey, that kind of sounds like science," but the science doesn't really deal with the quote unquote unseen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas magic would everything, right? Everything.
Yeah.
Including that self you're talking about, self or spirit, whatever you want to call it. Especially that. Yeah.
Yeah, Twilight is right though. When it sounds so dumb when you say it because it sounds repetitive or circular, but magic is just magic. It really
Magic's
is
just
that,
magic.
right? Like you can't really define it. It is a subjective thing. It's very nuanced. It depends on how the it's not an epistemological fact. It's not something that you can pin down and
Right.
say like this is the truth of what magic is.
Yeah.
It's something that's unpinnable. Like you
What-
can't hold it down.
What's the closest though we can point it to someone that's fairly new to all this?
I
we
would
know that most
personally
people
say
know.
the most important thing to understand, at least in my paradigm, is that if you think that magic is actually changing reality, you've lost the plot. What's actually happening is the awareness of the magician is shifting to a place where you are now opening yourself up to probabilities that before were vanishingly small. Okay, which is opening up doors for synchronicities and opportunities that align with what it is that you're searching. Carlos Castaneda called it the shifting of the assemblage points or pattern interruption.
I've done some streams about that, the assemblage point and the
So
Castaneda's
if you're
work. Yeah, for
familiar
sure.
with that,
Paradigm
it's
shifting.
a very good baseline to understanding. I think it's one of the better ones. And technically it's outside of magic, even though technically Don Juan was a Hikoi sorcerer, if he did in fact exist. But it doesn't really
I
matter
think he
if
was
he
a-
existed or not. It was a accurate understanding of sorcery regardless.
Right. He
Whether
seems
or
like
not he
he seems like Don Juan's a culmination of sorcery and Mesoamerican Western traditions and also Eastern traditions too.
Right.
And that's what's so cool about that story. It doesn't matter. People debate, is it a real person? I don't think that really matters. He's real
It really
enough to a lot of us who love it.
Yeah, it was a very good condensation of the sorceress, the sorceress arts, especially in a modern terms, because most of what they talk about sorcery and shamanism is completely bunk. And no, Don Juan, Carlos Castaneda, whoever, most definitely distilled that into a very realistic, framework.
Right. Let me show you this, guys. What do you guys think about this? We'll go back and forth for a minute, but this synopsis of this energy body stuff here.
Energy acting that if we're more than just a body and synaptic discharge brain creating the illusion of consciousness, then taking care of the actual totality of what constitutes the self is going to take more than just bodily hygiene and a yearly checkup with your dentist. It also stands to reason while a medical doctor should be your best bet for curing ailments in your physical body, there may be other kinds of fixes needed for the non-manifest parts of yourself.
And with that said, that goes with what we were talking with Landry, Hyperborean, about physical ailments, right? Like you may, the struggle may be in your physical body, but there could be something behind that, huh? That it's stemming from that you can't put your finger on physically, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Renaissance humanists understood that. The early alchemists understood that. Paracelsus, that was the crux of his work, was that every physical ailment starts way earlier than the physical ailment itself. It's a spiritual issue that works its way down and manifests itself as a physical ailment. I think that all the Eastern traditions of medicine understand this. Western medicine, they don't. They've either devolved or they're just behind, right? Like I don't know what's going on there. It may be more sinister than that. It may be like a deliberate attempt to destroy people's spiritual bodies through medicine. I think that's more so the case. But yeah, it's a fact, man. There are subtle bodies, and that's like 101 of magic or esoteric or occult sciences. When you said earlier, and I'll end it on this, I don't want to go on and on, this is your show.
Oh no,
is that
no! Let me say this real quick. I'm really happy to have you guys in because, man, like I love you experts in this realm in terms of we all have a lot to learn, but I appreciate you guys being up here for this subject. Thanks. So take as much time as you need.
Absolutely, and yeah, you're right. All of us are learning. So
Always.
thanks for having us up. But
Yeah,
you asked
absolutely.
to a beginner, what would you point him to as an analogy for magic, right? I would say that
Yeah.
it's somewhere in between science and art. It's like
Uh-huh.
something that is like
Yes.
that has a method or a praxis in the way that science does, but it's not necessarily objective. It's a creative science or an artistic science.
Yeah.
The earliest magicians were artists, and art was
Oh,
indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why Crowley got it right in a way when he says it's the art and science, you know, of causing change and conformity with will. You know, because it most definitely it is an art more than a science. But once you get that art down to you're basically bringing art to a science. That's essentially what's happening. Because when you understand, it's the art of consciousness. Once you understand consciousness, okay, like if you apply art, okay, like to anything else, right, and you look at like movies and how they affect consciousness, all right, for example, and they use like subliminals and all that, right? That's one level of it, all right, and you get into like hemisync, all right, and all of that, right? Like there are movies and like anime and stuff, like people don't realize they're basically, you know, built-in mystery schools if you actually know what you're looking at.
Right.
And they could actually be used, like for instance, one of my things I'm doing with my I was just writing a book, now it was a codex, and now it's like a forensic perceptual correction system, essentially. And one of the things I'm doing is using anime and movies and shit as a and music and like, you know, the word, you know, like whether poetry or like sacred text or whatever. And like the thing with the MK Ultra, like what they understand is the same thing that magicians understand, and it's through like through psychic attunement and emotional spiking and trauma and repetition and certain types of information. What it does is it creates it creates patterns in what's called the etheric field. And that etheric field, okay, has to be manifest within the physical reality. Okay, so if you can cause changes in the etheric field, it has no choice but to then manifest in physical reality. And so what I'm saying is to say is really will take me forever, but basically the main point is that if you understand how to make those changes, okay, you can influence your consciousness, okay, and bring it to places that are way outside. Understand this as well, especially ones that are like outside of the, you know, the mainstream and all. And so they understand how to program, right? But we can also do the same thing to ourselves by understanding how these archetypes work and all that, to where you can literally use, you know, entertainment as a way to help you like learn different stuff, learn different, you know, subject, certain skill and whatnot, literally by using entertainment and different types of music and different, you know, you could say like you have like different, like the like theta, gamma, sync, and all this type of thing. Like I said, it's really complicated. But when you understand like how these things work together, you can use that to actually increase your neuroplasticity to where you can teach yourself topics that normally would be very difficult, because what's happening is the repetition and the emotional spike and all of this is making it to where whatever it is that you're learning is going to be remembered a lot more, because it's like shocking your system. And
and I have to say that as a kid, being raised by television and movies, the marketers are so good at that. That like I would remember commercials, and I was known as the guy that could sing all the commercial jingles and knew all that shit because it was imprinted in my consciousness, man. So you're saying what you're saying though is like, why not do that to ourselves? Use that power that to do it to ourselves for the good or whatever we choose to desire.
Yeah, like I would be here a really long time getting into it, because the whole part of my codex that I'm creating, like on how this all like works together. But like, yeah, you can legitimately use it yourself. It's very precise on how this works. But just by creating these conditions within the mind, you can read. But yeah, the reason why this is why they spend so much memory anchors. Yeah, that's part of it.
Memory anchors. That's it. That's what it is. Yeah.
Oh,
Red was saying also too. He's saying that your mic is kind of choppy too, just to give you a heads up. Yeah.
All right, I'll come back and then.
All right, hold that thought. Yeah.
Be right back.
Okay. It's not a lot. Yeah. That's the correspondence. Do you use that, like, hit your senses when you're trying to upload something? I'll use the computer terms or whatever, like, to your consciousness. Do you like hit it on many different sensory levels, for example, hyperballing?
Yeah, it's Hyperborean.
Sorry about that, Hyperborean.
No, you're fine.
Thanks.
Yeah, what he's getting at is true. And when you say correspondence, yeah, that's a part of it. So like, think of like Giordano Bruno, think of like memory palaces, think of all the polymaths throughout
memory
history.
palace. Yes.
Think about why these people in the Renaissance were the greatest thinkers, why normies could speak 3 or 4 different languages. Like they were, disciplined in several arts and sciences. Like they had this system. It derives from an ancient system.
Yes.
It's there. We can use it for ourselves. The tube is probably the single most. The TV is probably the single most damaging to that faculty or that ability that we have as human beings that make us literally superhuman. Like how people perceive humans being super, right? Like their mental capacity. That is the case. We are normally like that. It's just that we've been hijacked and we use it all on remembering trash and
like I said,
dumbing down our. So yeah, you're right when you mentioned that. You're like, we can use that for ourselves. That is what we should be doing. Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly. It's perceptual correction, and that's what my tradition is ultimately all about. All the metaphysics is secondary. The main point is to correct perception and realize first off that it's not correct and that it's been deviated, and then to then correct that really is base of it all. But yeah, you were mentioning about the ads and stuff, like the commercials. The thing is like, yeah, they're selling you stuff. That's most definitely part of it. I'm not saying it's not. But you have to understand that these commercials, especially the ones that seem like nonsensical, like why are they even, doing it? Well, they spend millions of dollars, 30 seconds of ad. And the reason why is because behind what you can actually see, there's something you can't see that's infinitely more subtle.
Yeah.
That is the real message.
Yeah. Maybe what Brown's Boy is saying, the Bathhouse Magicians. Sounds like an album. That's a Diddy party. That's our new show. Tentatively in the name, us three. The Bathhouse. No, I'm just kidding. The Bathhouse Magicians. All right. How about Water Park Magicians? I like that better. But Yeah. Oh, speaking of this, I heard Twilight say it. And I'm curious of both of your gentlemen's take on what is consciousness to you.
I think that consciousness is an illusion. I think that
Mhm.
what you really are is an unlimited will, a self. And what we call consciousness is actually the pseudo self. It's like the remnants of phenomena when processed through a mind body system. Like the consciousness is like dependent on the body and the brain and the neurological network inside of the body. That's what I think consciousness is, because we can say somebody is unconscious as soon as they're knocked out, right? But
Yeah.
they're actually still, they could be dreaming, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, I think consciousness is it's a misnomer. People identify consciousness with the spirit or the mind or awareness. I think that consciousness is pseudo, and the term that's closest to what the real self is would probably be like unadulterated awareness or pure awareness or something like that.
Okay.
But with will in it, right? It's not passive. It's something that you can move in, and move is the wrong word too. This is really nuanced. I would say like it's something that is active. It's an active awareness.
Okay.
Consciousness is like pseudo. It's not a thing.
Yeah, when I hear people say consciousness awareness, I love that part. But I also hear people say be the observer. And when I'm glad you said active, because when I hear observer, the first thing that comes to mind is passive.
Yeah.
Like you're not. Maybe there's a time and place for that, right? But we got to move sometimes, right?
Well, sometimes people are just lost in terminology. Most people who say consciousness really do kind of mean what we're talking about.
They
but
do.
if you really want to be strict with it, I would agree with Hyperborean that it really is a sense of awareness that has will as a function.
Okay.
It like there's no like free will.
Okay, well, let me ask you, what is will then, after that?
Well, will is everything. It's the fact that there's something rather than nothing, So will can never be chained, nor can it be free. It just is. You know what I'm saying? So like the idea of free will is a an oxymoron. Will can never not be free. It's nor because it can never be changed. It's the essence of all things, As I said, it's the fact that there's a something rather than nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's right on the money. That's how I define it. I would say, in other words, right, just to riff off of what he's saying, I would say that will is the penultimate substrate of reality. It is existence, right? And you could say the will is the body of the spirit. Like the spirit, if the spirit has a body, it's will. And that's its only form.
Yes.
It's not in the shape of a human being or a dog or a tree or a liquid or a solid. It's like it's something that has infinite, unrestrained potentiality that can express itself in a multitude of ways, or in a singular way, or in no way. It has the ability to do what it wants. I would say that the origin, where the spirits come from, is will. And each of the spirits that comprise the origin are will. They're indistinguishable from each other, besides the fact that you can call yourself the self or whatever. You can say that there's units. There are many units, monads within this thing we call the origin. So it kind of resolves the problem of the one and the many, the problem of universals, because it's not one and it's not many. It's many ones. It's like a It resolves itself or whatever.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not like one as in like just one. That like everything is sharing. It's many ones that have the same divinity as the one, which is not a god, but is like the primal field from which all gods originate. And when I say gods, I mean you and I.
Bingo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you follow? And even God is a misunderstanding, really, but most people don't go that far. So when I say God, I mean something that is immortal, that has no time or space associated with it, and that is beyond any material form. Okay, so it exists in the a cosmos that is outside of time and space and outside of form. So all forms are just like disguises, essentially, that are used in this transitory world we exist in. But beyond all of that is a formless being that has no differentiation.
You could look at the forms. You can look at the forms in the world, like the shapes, the colors, the sounds, all the forms that you observe and perceive in the world as phenomena are like that eternal will being frozen, or it's something's trying to restrict it for a time being, and then it only exists for a certain amount of time or whatever. It ceases to exist after its time, whether that's a human body after 70 years or a tree after 200 years, 300 years. Or a mountain that ends up falling and dissolving and turning into, other, mineral composites or whatever. Like everything, will is the substrate. It's the ground of all existence. That's how I would define will.
Okay. Yeah. How would you say that that people who are not initiates or like I said, once again, newbies, how would because they have a knowing of this? I believe everyone probably has a knowing, but how is it taught to them what you're talking about? Because I get what you're talking about for sure, but like I'm trying to think of ways that maybe I misconstrued. We were talking about like the will, but we're talking about something else. The first thing that comes to mind is spirit, how it's used in the Judeo-Christian way.
Sure,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go drone on too long. I'll make this short and concise. I would say that you have to do it, right? I know that in occult traditions, Western mystery traditions specifically, it's encouraged, and in the Eastern traditions, it's encouraged to have some kind of guru or a master that knows this.
Yeah, we reject that completely.
Yeah, which kind of like should lead you through the pitfalls or whatever. But I say that no, it should work the other way around. You as an individual should study this earnestly. Be honest with yourself. Admit when you don't know something, and don't be comfortable with something if you're not sure of it, right? Like if you have a sliver of doubt about something that you're studying or that you've fallen on, whether that's like philosophically, theologically, or whatever, like you should assess it until you dug and hit the bottom of the rabbit hole. And that's somewhere. It's just it could take a long time. It could take a little bit of time depending on the initiate. But I think to sum it up, you should do it and be honest with yourself. That's the emphasis that I want to put on it, is that you shouldn't be comfortable and be like, oh, well, I got it. And there still exists out there some tradition that you haven't undug, or a rock that hasn't been turned over. Turn over all the rocks before you give up and think that you've figured it out. Try to seek out all the rocks. Turn them all over. Dig to the bottom of the ocean, to plumb the depths of the ocean to figure this out, right? Climb the top of the mountains to figure this out, and do that as an individual. Don't let some guy come along and say, I'm a master and I've hit it. And this is what it is, right? Because then you're just going to give up. You didn't turn over the rock yourself. You're trusting that this guru or this master turned over all the rocks for you. Don't do that.
Right.
You do it. You do
it. I have a feeling
it take a long time.
Right. Yeah. And I get that.
It's a never ending.
And I have to say, never ending. Yeah. The process. And I have to, and the reason why is like, I've asked the questions because I'm hoping this broadcast, because this channel is one of the main reasons for my son, who's 7, when he gets older, if he chooses to see what dad and his friends were, discussing and stuff, maybe he can learn some stuff. Right.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so the reason I ask these questions is not necessarily because like when I ask the question, I think like, I don't have to look anymore. I'm thinking like I've asked the question so they can be jump off points for people to, like you said, like do exactly what you guys are saying, like do your own research. And like you used to say, well, the Reading Rainbow show, like don't take my word for it. You go find out yourself, right? And I'm glad you reminded me that, and other people watching, because even though I say that, there is a tendency to do that, huh? To defer to quote unquote experts, be like, oh, I don't have to do any more work. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and Steve, this is
it.
why this is a very hot. This is a very hot take. This is also why, in my tradition, and just in my personal convictions, I feel that it's very not only foolish but dangerous to not only try to unplug someone who doesn't want to be using the Matrix symbolism, but to help people that don't want to be helped. Number one, and to try to save them, because you're interfering with their karma. Okay, when I say karma, I don't believe in karma in the traditional sense. But what I mean by karma is their life lessons.
Right.
Okay. You're actually keeping them from lessons that they need to learn. Whether or not that is a painful lesson, or a beneficial one. Because we all have to go through what we have to go through, right? And usually, unfortunately, we tend to learn the most from pain. Okay. And so when everyone's like, always saying like, you need to get this out to more people and you need to like, help more people. And it's like, no, like nobody, like literally no one helped me. Like I had to figure everything out myself, and that's not me being like, oh, there's definitely people I want to help, but like, those are the people that ask questions and don't have a million and one ways to like break everything down, tear everything down. Now, I'm not saying like I'm like trying to be a guru, last thing in the world, but it's like if you already have an answer, then there's no reason to talk. It's just like, because if anyone were to sit and ask me, I would just give them 1,000 sources, and be like, well, you go figure it out. Because like Hyperborean saying, like you're doing an injustice to yourself if you take anyone's word for any, no matter how much, even if you agree with 90% of what they're saying on the surface, dig deeper, because you're going to find something that you disagree with.
Yeah. Remember we talked about, Twilight, we talked about how you and I love the works cited pages in books. Like, this is where they got the information for, so we can look for ourselves.
From the
keep
beginning.
Going deeper and deeper with each book you read. You can like the Russian doll.
I'm looking at the index and the bibliography, and I want to know who influenced and who influenced their influencers. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to get to it. And most
that's why when Hyperborean he put that high magic, I'm like, oh, I gotta look real quick while we're talking. And I'm like, oh shit, and
that's why we're like, and that's why you're like, well, we gotta explain it for fifth graders. And I'm like, well, that's fine. Like I'm totally, when you put it in the way you did, I completely agree with that. That's perfectly fine. I'll talk to kindergarten if they have the desire to learn. But I'm not going to sit here and waste my time with people who have no real interest in learning anything, and just want to like through ignorance just like tear people down. Because
to be honest, I think we established that on this channel. I think I've established that because like I played the little game before, the panel verse, like but like the people know for the most part that shit we want to learn here. And
this is a serious.
Exactly, we want to have fun.
Less serious. This is no less serious than any other. This is less serious than any other discipline.
Yeah.
Or job. This is no different than going and learning like brain chemistry or some shit. Like it really is. This was something that he was talking about the Renaissance and all that. Like all of the people in the Renaissance knew this shit. Everybody. That's why you had, like you were saying, they all had multidisciplinary fucking, you had like Francis Bacon had like 16 different, specialties. And it's because, the great work was taught, and not only was the great work taught, but like none of these subjects were divided. Science, philosophy, religion was different then. Mathematics, arithmetic, what do you call it? But like the quadrivium, the trivium, like all that.
They even
it was all
had
taught
physical
together.
things like gymnastics, even.
There was no right.
Astrology.
Yeah, they had the gymnasium.
Yeah.
They had the gymnasium, and all these things were taught as one subject because they are.
Yeah, that was my
that's
my
why-
broadcast yesterday. It was called Integral Studies. That's actually what I went to school for officially. Integrated Studies.
Oh,
which is
yeah.
based on all that. Yeah.
That was
I
smart.
love trying to bring it
Yeah.
all together, man. Trying to bring it all together.
Because it is, man. It is. You know, in every science that we have in the mundane, you know, materialist, you know, atheist fucking paradigm, every bit of it came from the occult, dude. And every major scientist that we have today, based in this materialist reductionist science, were occultists too. You know, like they've proven over and over again that, you know, what's his name? Newton.
Yeah.
Studied alchemy and the Kabbalah more than he did anything else. You know, Descartes got messages from a goddess, and then he denied them, and then that's what made him say, "Well, I can't trust anything but what I can see." But he actually was basically a mystic who denied his path, essentially, which is sad. But like you could go on and on, like a bunch of people that were part of what we would today call the materialist atheist, you know, paradigm, were all involved in the occult, and it's just been hidden.
Right. It's funny because living here in Taiwan, I'm privy to. In my circle, I know a lot of engineers and scientists because my father-in-law, he was one of the forerunners in biomedical engineering here. And it's funny that you think traditionally you think, oh, you know, scientists are atheists. No, like all his friends, like they're all like either Buddhist or Christian, or now they're not necessarily occultists in the traditional sense, but they're not atheists. They believe in their science. They do their science, but they also have a deep love of theology and whatnot too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's made for TV. Most of these atheists aren't even really atheists. It's literally an agenda, bro.
Yeah.
It's literally an agenda. Atheism is an agenda. Like there are very few that actually believe this shit.
Yeah. Is it worse than a waste of time, you think? We can say it's a waste of time, but no, it's actually detrimental. Would you guys think atheism?
I mean, I'm an atheist in the sense that I don't believe in any like organized religion in the way that it's, you know, taught. But I'm so far from an atheist in what that like means in its final form. You know, like we're all divine. So I mean, it's absurd.
Somebody said something here. It was funny. They made a joke, but they're like, because I think Hyperborean, you says about turning over every rock, that metaphor, and then but they said like sometimes was it what's the matter with you? Sometimes when you turn over a rock, you may find something you don't like. Or whatever.
Good.
Then Brown's boy say with the crack rock. That's funny. But have you guys come across turning over a rock where you were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe what I'm seeing here with this tradition," or something?
All the time.
Like,
Yeah.
You know,
every
the
rock,
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, every rock that actually serves the purpose for, you know, progressing in this art is going to be that rock. It's going to be the rock you don't like because it's going to break down and tear down your worldview. That's how you know you're actually making a progress in the occult art. In magic is when you think you figured it out and then you realize you didn't. And that to every true magician, you know, who's practiced long enough, they will tell you this, that they thought they figured it out dozens of times. This is what happens. They go, man, I was at that stage. Oh yeah, I remember my first beer. That's literally what the magician will tell you. Who's actually using the expert or the, you know, the master magician will say that. He'll say, "Yeah, I get it. I did that too," or whatever. It's you want to find those rocks. You want to hope that the next rock you turn over is going to shatter your worldview and correct it.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like how I look at constructive criticism. I'm a sensitive. I'd be known as a sensitive person in my personal history, like with especially at work. But now I'm at a place. I work at this academy as a teacher, where the quote unquote owners are like really cool people. And with that said, you know, sometimes they have to relay things to us, some other teachers, and it's like I take it as where I used to be like kind of offended, like, how dare you you know, say I did something, you know, I need to fix something or whatever, get better. But now I take it as like, yeah, man, this is good. I'm learning, you know, I want to hear these things so I don't have the blind spots anymore.
Yeah,
you know
well,
what I'm
see,
saying?
knowledge is always evolving. You know, we're constantly learning more and more. You know, not even just on a personal level, just like constantly making new discoveries about every discipline of knowledge. Okay, so like I would make the argument that not only do you have to be open to discovery, but I would say that you have to become so comfortable with your own paradigms being shattered that you have to actually like look forward to.
Yes,
Like,
not
it's
to
true.
interrupt, but this is what I meant by being earnest and honest with yourself. The true magician can have the humility. He has to have the humility to be able to accept that fact, to go, I was wrong. He has to be the best at that in order to make progress. If not, he's going to be stuck at the first aha moment or the first eureka. He'll go, I figured it out. Nothing will break my worldview. This is it, and that's the end of it. But the true progressive, the guy who progresses in the occult art is he has humility, and he will accept that he's wrong over and over and over and over again. And the more you do that, the harder it is to disprove your paradigm or your worldview or your cosmology, whatever it is. The more you break it down, you got to keep doing that. If you can do it 100 times, even better. That means you've made it way further than other people who have rested and given up at the third time that it's happened, or the 10th time, or the 20th time. And the other thing I want to mention real quick is the comment by Darwin that says, I live in Australia. Turning rocks is inadvisable. There's usually something with fangs underneath. This goes back to the idea that I mentioned about magic being an internal art. It's different because in the external, there's the illusion of death. Your time can be ended here in the physical world abruptly, right? And you'll have to, your consciousness is interrupted, and there's like a delay that happens there, and you come back and you suffer from amnesia, and then you got to pick up the pieces again. But if you do this as an internal art, the internal is eternal. The spirit is eternal. Any rock that you turn over, it won't destroy you. As bad as it may look, and as big as the fangs are on that spiritual rock, under that creature underneath that spiritual rock, you will not die from it. So the internal art, it doesn't matter what rock and how bad it is, you will come out at the other end.
Yeah.
And whether that's fragmented or stronger, that's another question. But you will survive.
Yeah, that sounds like everything that Christianity wants you. They want to scare you into not turning over the rock inwardly.
Well, yeah, no,
in a lot of ways. For example, there's other things too.
We can get into how Christianity hijacked Lucifer Christus, but we could do that another time. But but no, like basically another way I could put it is you have to get used to swallowing poison in order to become immune to it, because the poison is only poison when you're not immune. Like legitimately, I don't know if you know this, but like way back, they actually used to use snake venom to go into altered states of consciousness. They would allow themselves to become, like bitten or whatever, and after a certain point, they would develop antibodies. Okay, and so or you could see it as like a challenge or something. All right, and in the occult, you have Samael. Right. Well, Samael is the poison of God. Right. But that poisons illusions. It poisons false perception. Okay. Hail the Spirit. Hell yeah. It poisons false perceptions. It poisons your idea of what you think you are and what you think reality is. And this is what Lucifer does. Lucifer is the light in the darkness. Lucifer is light that is too bright to behold. It'll blind you if you're not ready. Okay? So it's about, that's what darkness is. Dark light that's too bright to be seen. And so it like protects you from it. But once you become an adept and you start to be able to move about in the darkness, okay, then that darkness does become light. And also this has to do with going into the shadow, going into what you don't want to see. And again, this is what Lucifer represents. He makes you see everything you wish you didn't have. This also gets into the left-hand path in the traditional sense of what it really means. Again, these are terms that are just used to explain things. But the left-hand path is about doing everything you don't want to do. The right-hand path, following what is everyone has already done. It's about merging with, divinity and essentially losing yourself. The left-hand path, going outside of the cosmic order and outside of the plan of salvation and outside of the so-called one, just really the demiurge, okay? And actually reclaiming your own divinity as a sovereign, as an immortal, okay? And so what that represents is, in the Gnostic text, there's a quote, Jesus talks about, he who doesn't know thyself, know thyself and you'll be known, that you'll be known that you're children of the living Father. But if you don't know thyself, then you are in poverty. And he says, don't stop seeking. When you, when you seek, you'll find, you'll be disturbed. But once you overcome that, once you get past that, you'll rule over the all, right? And then it also says, he who searched the earth will find a corpse. And so what it's saying is like what you're gonna find is that like what people say the world is not real, and it's dead, it's lifeless, and that you can only actually bring meaning from within yourself. Nothing in the world can bring you meaning. You follow me? Most people are doing the opposite. They're trying to find ways for the world to turn them on, to give them meaning, give them purpose. But you can't find purpose outside of self, and then you give that, you then bring that purpose from inside of you and assign it, to whatever outside of you.
Yeah, is there any connotation to people who search outwardly, to people who would say something like, see, that's your problem. You're searching, so you need to stop searching. You're already here.
That's true. You are already here. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't search outside at all, but what I am saying is the search of the self should be primary.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of like there's nothing wrong with the ego. The ego is absolutely healthy. To not have an ego is suicide.
That's why I get turned off when I hear that Twilight. When people go ego death. I'm like, are you sure about that, buddy?
That's right-hand path, false mysticism. No, it's suicide. But having said that, the ego needs to serve consciousness or serve, as we were saying, will. Okay, but people get confused. With that. But you know what I'm saying now. Me and Hyperborean find it. Okay, so the will needs to be the master over ego. What happens is ego tries to dictate will. Okay, and so that's what happens. So the ego needs to be a servant, not a master. Because if the ego is in control, then it convinces you of things that are not true, and this is where you get into like the Buddhist and Hindu understanding of Maya and all. Maya is not something outside; it's something that we create inside and then project into the outside world. Right?
What's a way to get that love?
Lucifer is all about this, making you see the world for what it is, making you see people for what they are, which can reveal like false friendships, false. And I was speaking from experience here, through working with this magic, with these magical currents. It legitimately makes you face everything you do not want to see. That's why he's the one of the reasons why he's called the Prince of Lies. It's actually kind of like tongue in cheek, because he exposes the lies. He's not really the liar; he's really the truth teller. Because even like in Job and all of that, like he's not doing anything that isn't. He's not saying anything that's true. It's just it shakes your fucking your foundations.
Yeah.
You know, like it.
Well,
go ahead. You can't.
Well, let
buy
me
it
just say this.
yourself.
No, you're hitting it. You're hitting that right too, because I have like a real world example of what you're talking about. And then we were talking about earlier about humbling too. That came up a little bit. Like I'm not talking shit about the guy because I mean we all know him, but like Avian Buddha came out here yesterday, and I mean he admitted he was drunk, right? And I don't like that, you know. And he kept saying that like how I'm paraphrasing, like he's so enlightened and everyone else that you know, the masses are stupid. And I'm like, I you heard some of that, and I just like see that Maya getting, like, for example, you're talking Maya getting in the way. Like this is what happened yesterday. This is a short clip I made from the show when I was talking about my daughter that passed away. Check this out.
He's like chewed me out and said I'm not his friend so many times, and then apologized.
Why would you?
It's kind of absurd.
Yeah, it is. This is wild. Like I was just trying to like pay homage to, you know, brought up my daughter that passed away. Like and he was like, I don't know. Check this out. It's weird.
You choose to worship a God who closes his eyes to the suffering of children?
First of all, I said that I never said I worshiped the God like that. So it's like very assuming a lot, you know, not listening, right?
Why would you?
I don't believe God does that. What I say is God, I don't think they closes his eyes. I think God, the supreme being, is aware of everything and does things that I can't even comprehend, probably or reasons why. Or if I could, I don't see it, but I'm okay with that. So my point is like that's above my pay grade, kind of.
So you're okay with children being born and being bombed or born with genetic issues, and God is totally indifferent towards that. You're okay.
You're asking me if I'm okay. Well, this is someone that had a child that was born with genetic issues, and was one of the worst things that ever happened to me, watching her die when she was stillborn. Me and my wife and I being there. So yeah, I know these things. I don't have to have a theory about some kid getting bombed or having this actually happens to me.
I'm gonna tell you something.
So with that said, no, you're not. Please don't interrupt me when I'm saying this, because this is important to me, because I love my angel that died. That's her name, Angel, that passed away. And so with that said, I believe that there's a reason for everything, and that what I'm doing right now, my priority is not important.
Why would you?
Okay. Yeah.
That's unhinged. He does shit like that. I tried to be his friend so many times, bro.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Browns boy. Appreciate you, buddy. Love you.
He went and was like talking all kinds of shit about me because I made a comment about the Order of Nine Angles, this is really funny. And I was like exposing like how they got infiltrated like over a year and a half ago, and I was talking about the Temple of Blood and the Temple of Them and 764, and was like alerting people to all this when nobody was talking about it, before the FBI was talking about it, before the FBI was even investigating. And because I mentioned that I was like at one point a part of it, okay?
Yeah.
And that I almost got brought into these other groups. And because of that, I had inside knowledge of what the hell it was all about. And I said, well, technically, you know, the Order of Nine Angles, like they do have some good information. They do have some good practices, and they themselves were never part of these other groups, right? And this can be proven, right? And I said, technically, since they have no authority, they have no hierarchy, and it's all based online. Like you can't go to like a temple, Order of Nine Angles, like get, you know, initiated. It was all online. And I said, because since that's technically the truth, and I do use some of their practices, it's very practical. Like they're not really a mystical order. It's all about like putting yourself through hell, like a boot camp. Like it's all very much about like building yourself up, almost like a boot camp, where you're
breaking yourself down to build yourself up, Marine style.
They're literally like going into the woods for like 3 months and shit. You know what I'm saying? And this is like they're bringing back a physical and mental like training to what they would call traditional Satanism. Okay, now so there's a lot of what they talk about that I agree with, and so I said technically I guess I am still part of it. And I said that on purpose because there are actually people that are aligned with that are the opposite, the infiltrator ones, like Temple of Blood, that are within the Panelverse. I'm not going to name names right now, okay? And so I said that because I knew that someone was going to jump at me to hide themselves. And Alien spent the whole time, okay, basically slandering me and my friend and talking about I was never his friend and all this bullshit, dude, because of one comment. Okay.
Right.
And
you're being transparent. You're trying to expose people to traps and whatnot.
I'm past it. Like, I'm past it.
Yeah.
But I'm just using this example. Like, I didn't talk to him for over a month, dude. Every time I would come and see him, like, talking, he was either talking about me, literally. Okay. He would say something
that happened
to me,
here. Yeah.
Or like people would tell me, like, Avian was saying this, Avian was saying that. And then he's attacking my best friend, Moontan, who is literally like one of my best friends. And he's just saying all this about, oh, well, you're Order of 9 Angles and she's Order of 9 Angles. And it's like, bro, you're literally talking to people in Temple of fucking Blood and you don't even know.
Right.
That is literally like child, like, exploitation and shit. FBI, fucking, like, you know, whatever. But, like, I don't have any hard feelings toward him anymore. But he's literally like, why don't you unblock me? Let's be friends again. And it's like, bro, you sat and talked shit about me for a fucking month when I said nothing to you. You know,
this is a weird thing to come after you about, because, like, if someone just talks to you for 10 minutes, they realize that you're I mean, I'll use colloquially, you're a good person and you mean well, you know, and like you're very very passionate about what you do. You don't mean harm on people. I don't see it. I mean, so it's like,
I mean harm on those people.
I was gonna say if you choose so to, but for the most part, I've always seen you. I've seen you conduct yourself, like, you know, respectfully, and I think that's cool. But there is a time and a place for everything, for sure.
Bro, I'm Italian, bro. We live by integrity. We live by honor and loyalty.
How did I know you're Italian?
Don't let the mafia trick you. Like, yeah, we can be intense sometimes, dude, but like we're not all like that. And even if we are, it's for a reason.
There's a time and a place for it, just like this. I got a question for you guys from the chat. Nude Guru for Hyperborean and yourself, Twilight. He says, why wouldn't one be honest with oneself? If you weren't honest with ourselves, what are we then? Was that a question?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and here's the thing. The thing, Nude Guru. If you're not honest with yourself, it's actually impossible for the world to be honest with you. And what I mean by that is your external reality that you experience is absolutely a reflection of your internal reality. And so the more honest you are with yourself, the more the people around you will be honest with you. Like, that's just it. So the more you lie to yourself, the more you're going to find people who lie to you. This is 100% correlated.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
There's no other way around it.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's a valid question, but we both know that people are dishonest with themselves. This is what's going on. The majority of people are. They're trying to create an image of themselves that they're not.
Which that image doesn't even exist. That is,
it doesn't exactly.
See, me and Hyperborean have a deep respect.
For sure, definitely we do. So yeah, what are we then, right? That's the question. What are you then if you're not? You know, that's what people need to ask themselves who haven't ever considered being honest with themselves and what that means. That's the heart of the issue, and that's the exact question they should be asking themselves. What am I then?
What am I? Yeah, maybe this will help us. This is another question from my best friend Shadow Buddha. He says, "Ask Twilight and Hyperborean what they think of Tom Platz's philosophy." And Tom Platz is, world-renowned legendary bodybuilder who infused consciousness into his training. Tom Platz says, his philosophy of extreme existentialism and radical materialism for harnessing suffering in order to enter the room, as he called it, where ego and suffering disappear temporarily. Extreme existentialism. That sounds kind of cool right there. Radical mentalism.
That's completely in alignment with what I was talking about, Pathio Mathos of the Order of 9 Angles. That's exactly what that is. Don't let the name trigger you. Like I said, they were very much infiltrated, and
yeah,
I would go so far that they were actually. I would go so far as to say that they were actually a force for quote unquote good, and that's why they were infiltrated, because they were a weapon against what Hyperborean would call the synarchy, which I mean I agree to be honest.
Well, to add on to that, in order, Tom Platt said, in order to understand no self concept, one has to be able to push the mind to pass its limits with the body used as a vehicle. Even after harnessing suffering for internal power to push the mind and body past its limits, after entering the mental space, the room, which Tom claimed that suffering and the ego temporarily disappear.
Well, you're actually going beyond the mind is what's happening. This also has to do with like stuff like BDSM. No, I'm not trying to be cute. I'm serious.
Okay.
When you understand like what that I'm for real. Because you're
I'm
going
not laughing.
outside.
I mean, come on. I believe you.
No, I know you do, but I'm saying for other people, like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Okay.
Like you're actually like at some level you're actually leaving your body.
Right. Transcending the pain.
You're going beyond, and because of that, you don't actually feel it anymore. You're going somewhere else. So wisdom is not gained through comfort, but through ordeal, pressure, and pain. Okay. So it's this is what it is. Where in the left hand path tradition, and its real like understanding is that's what it's about. That's what Lucifer represents. Again, it's about not escaping pain, but actually running towards it and using it as not something to for self-destruction, but as rocket fuel to expansion.
Damn.
Yeah.
That sounds like any athlete that pushes themselves to the limit.
Well,
have
this is
Luciferian tendencies.
This is black magic.
That's why they do great things, I guess. Yeah.
This is black magic. Black magic is not my. We'll make the distinction of baneful magic. Baneful magic is when you are using it to manipulate someone's will. Okay, so that could most definitely be seen as what most people would call black magic, where you are imposing your will upon someone beyond their beyond their consent. And also you could put like certain lower forms of magic. Not that all lower forms of magic are necessarily bad. I just don't really have much time for it. Now, like if you're in trouble and you're like fucking poor because you lost your job or whatever, like can you use that? Can you use magic to help you like get back on your feet? I don't see why not. But we both pretty much use it mostly to for alchemy and to better understand the self.
And and with let me just go back with hostile. This goes to the comment you made towards Charles Darwin about those things, those harmful things in the exterior under the rocks or whatnot. It's kind of along the same lines. What's the matter you? He shared this quote where he said, someday, this is a Lovecraft quote, someday the piercing together of disassociated knowledge will open it up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our fateful position therein that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. H.P. Lovecraft. What do you think about that quote?
Yeah, it's very Hyperborean is what it is.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's the idea that confronting the fears, confronting the darkness, confronting the unknown is the opportunity to transcend conventional knowledge, conventional understanding. You can equate that with madness. I would call it gnosis. I would say madness and gnosis are very close to each other. Madness, gnosis can sometimes lead other normies essentially to believe that one is mad. People who had, unique perspectives on the world or gnosis in general would be put into, straitjackets and checked into mental wards and institutions. So, yeah, I think H.P. Lovecraft was onto the true left-hand path that Twilight is trying to define. That there is a true left-hand path, and I liked how you distinguished it from, or you separated black magic from baneful magic, because ultimately, when you dig into the nuance of this, you'll find out that like white magic and black magic, they flip. Like the blackness is actually like the true gnosis. It's not like there's no moral connotation on the white and the black. The true connotation is on ultimate wisdom or understanding of reality, and you don't find that within the light. You find that within the unknown or beyond the unknown or the darkness or the blackness. That's where it's to be found.
Yeah,
the New Age would say shadow work,
the right-hand path is actually the deceptive path.
It is, yeah. And from somebody who, personally me, who considered themselves a right-hand pather, somebody who practiced, Hermeticism, Rosicrucianism, Masonry in its pure sense, like all these traditions, Theosophy, Anthroposophy, you try to keep in mind that you're doing this for a moral reason. There's an ethic that lies under your magical work or whatever, but then you realize that it's about your existence. Like it's about spiritual liberation, and then you realize that the right-hand path leads only to absorption into like a hive mind. So there actually is no
collectivism,
identity.
right?
Yeah, there's like a collectivism there. It's like communism it's like politics. There's communism. Magic. The analogy would be the right-hand path or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like kumbaya, new agey. The true enlightenment or the true gnosis, and you can retain an ethic. That's what's so paradoxical about this. I would consider myself a left-hand path magician, but I have an extreme ethic and a moral fortitude, and I consider myself an honorable individual. I don't steal. I don't cheat on my wife. I try to instill values and virtue into my children. Like, but I am not a Satanist. I actually despise evil entities and evil in general, but I consider myself a what most people would call a black magician. Yeah, I'm a left-hand pather. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Elusive.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Paul, Unslaved Patriot Hub, he's 91.1. He says alchemy is probably a more neutral and sterile idea devoid of religiosity. Taking the darker or lesser aspects and turning them into gold, if possible, through a refinement process. And then he said, okay. Got it. Shadow Buddha says, I always say that I think that Buddha, being an extra eccentric for many years, helped me train to sit under the Bodhi tree for 49 days, allowing him to achieve enlightenment. Yeah, that was pretty an epic feat. 49 days sitting under the tree. Fasting, basically.
Yeah, Paul is right about alchemy. It's partially true. I think it was turned into chemistry or a scientific art over time to mask its religiosity, its theology. It was a spirit. It's always been a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
But in fear of persecution, you had to mask your occult practice under the guise of some scientific endeavor.
That reminds me of sorry to interrupt real quick, but like that reminds me of Israel Regardie, how he was very passionate about Reiki, among other things, right? And yet he knew it was important for him to get his clinical psychology degree. You know what I mean? So it's like kind of like cover, right? Like cover for what his true passion is, right? I'm sure he used those techniques, those other things that weren't, he didn't go to the university, the quote unquote brick and mortar university for. Incorporated them into his practices, even in the clinical sense, I would imagine, huh?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
These occult arts, these societies, the groups, the closed circles, all of these are rocks, quote unquote, to use an analogy that you need to turn over. You should seek out, if you're an occultist, right, self-proclaimed, and you don't know what alchemy is, you got to do more research. If you don't know what astrology is, do more research. If you don't know what tarot is, Kabbalah, theurgy, all that, you got to do more research. Don't stop. Keep researching. That's all I can say. Like, eventually you will get to a point to where you feel confident in your path to move forward and to keep moving forward and persevere. And like I said, some people, it takes a long time to get to that top, what they consider the top of the mountain or the bottom of the rabbit hole. Others, some get it and it unfolds quickly. It happens. I want to say that it's rooted, the realization of the goal, the crowning jewel, right, of the occult art lies within an intuitional understanding. It's not something that's logical or rational or intellectual. It's not like because I study math for so long, I'll start to understand how the formulae work. It's not like that. It's not like because I study the alphabet and grammar and rhetoric, I'll learn how to be a good speaker. Magic isn't like that. It's something that is entirely transcendent. It's intuitional. The people who understand how to execute and use this art effectively, they'll find it in intuition. That's the biggest hint I can give people. And I don't mean hint like I'm trying to hide something. It's because it's ineffable. I cannot transmit the secrets of magic to a person. But what I'm trying to do here is give you the hint or the key behind what I've realized is the effective key or tool to it or whatever.
It's receptive. That's why it's the left hand. The left hand has to do with the right brain. That's why it's called sinister. And the left hand and the right brain are associated with the female polarity, which is receptive. So magic is a receptive art. Okay? So this also gets into like the left hand, right hand thing. So there are reasons for these distinctions. Okay? It's just they've been very misunderstood. The right hand path is the left brain, the logical, the active force, the solar, and the Saturnian. I said the left is again the darkness. It has to do with the feminine polarity. And when I say the feminine polarity, I don't just mean females. There's feminine and masculine in everybody. Okay,
for sure.
And so this is really what we're talking about. Is it's being able to not so much do, but to be able to become, I don't want to use the word channel, but to be a vessel for information that is coming through. Now, that doesn't mean that you just sit back and do nothing. It's both, okay? But it's more opening yourself up to possibility. It's less about doing and more about undoing. It's more apophatic. You see what I'm saying?
Undoing the world.
Apophatic. It's absolutely apophatic. The best word to describe this, I think. I'm glad you brought that word up.
And what does that mean exactly? I've heard it before.
It's what is not.
It's only through negation.
What is not?
Yes.
Okay.
It's only through negation can you understand what something is, because it is unutterable. It is it is incognizable. It's not possible to actually put into human language.
Yes, it's not something that you can, because as soon as you say something is, you've selected it, right? It's better to take the apophatic route and to try to negate things, to figure out what things are, right? Especially when you're trying to define something like God or the self or whatever, like these grandiose objectives that you try to define. Take the apophatic route to deduce what these things are.
Oh yeah.
Guys, I have to get off of here. I appreciate it, Gabriel. Thank you for letting me step up. Twilight, as always. Hell, Lucifer, comrade.
Thanks, Hostile.
My brother.
Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, don't be a stranger. Oh my God, she's like. Before we go, that legend, Hostile Hyperborea, absolutely. Nude Guru has a comment. Let's look at this before we get out of here. Of Twilight, he says magic is just magic, kind of like what both of you guys are saying. It's not black or white. It's just a tool, like a knife. You decide what you use it for. Choose wisely.
That's what I always say. Yes, exactly. You can use the knife to cut food, or you can use it to stab someone to death.
Yeah. Yep. Eliminating what isn't. God, you guys are so great. Yeah, I appreciate you coming through, brother. Like very spontaneous, dropping that
Yeah.
wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
That was
I
that
had
was
just
fun.
woken up and I saw you. I was like, oh yeah, he's talking about magic. Go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll do this again soon.
And then I realized Hyperborean was here. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be good.
This is
'Cause
good.
we,
Yeah.
we have a lot of overlap and more respect for each other. So he's one of the few
Yeah, I
people
can
that
see.
I actually like fuck with. Yeah, like I told you,
Yeah.
I have very few people that I actually fuck with.
Yeah. I appreciate you fucking with me, man. And yeah, and let's keep the party going, bro. I'll
Sure,
talk
brother.
to you in the near future, brother. Want to be out of
Sure,
here.
man.
Okay.
Peace and power.
Be be well. I'll talk to you soon, brother. Yeah. And, yeah, and everybody, I saw Paul in the back. Yeah, I was about to let you up. Yeah, man. It looks like Paul and Brown's boy had some closure, maybe. Yeah. Shout out to Shadow Buddha, my brother. Love you. Angel. Love you, girl. Thank you, Browns boy. Appreciate that, man. What's the matter, you legend? Charles Darwin. Fucking appreciate you for being here. Everyone. Hyperbolea and Twilight, appreciate you. And yeah, this has been the Human Race, Volume 1, Made in Taiwan. What is magic? Yeah. And we'll see you tomorrow when we discuss the movie it's the Civil War with Tommy, the panel versus waste management president. We'll see you soon, guys. Peace. Remember, yeah. Just remember, right?
the windows up, box on deal. Yo, you can have that twice. I'm gonna chop with the heel so we can keep the city like I'm on a 1, 2, we took our lock like I was fly. Do that San Francisco, show like you but lie.